Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. Episode 292. Welcome to Raging Bullets, 338. I'm Sean Whalen, 338. Dr. Norge on the comic forums, 338. Jim, can you come here for a second? 338.
No! Put the crowbar down.
So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and 338, the Duke of You-Know.
Sean?
338. On this episode, Jim and I are going to be talking Batgirl number 5, Batman number 5, Green Arrow number 5, and Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E number 5. This actually is the second last episode before we covered the entire New 52. And what we decided to do, there was a couple books, Batman and Batgirl, which we've discussed previously in our full exploration of New 52. We wanted to start going back to, and there's just two issues that I'm like, I don't want to wait. I want to go back to them. So we're going to do this. Next episode, we're going to actually wrap that up and get the final 3 books that we haven't covered yet. After that, we're going to do our DC Universe in one line only. It's going to be kind of our summary of this whole experience, and then we're going to go back to just kind of randomly picking books and doing some speeding bullets to talk about a lot of books to keep covering the DCU. At the end of this episode, I'll announce what we're going to do for episode 300 and our new contest. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, we're at that end of the month time again. This is January 29th when I'm recording this part of the podcast. And I wanted everybody to check out their website this week because at the start of February, they're going to be putting all the brand new deals up that you can be getting anywhere from 35 to 75% off. Just this past month, they offered this amazing Vertigo bundle that I've mentioned before. It was all 4 of the brand new titles that are being sold by Vertigo for $2.99 total. That's a great price point to try out some new books. They're constantly doing deals and specials on that, on everything from single issues to bundle packages to hardcovers and trades and statues. Anything you're looking for that would be available in the previous catalog is available on InStockTrades.com. Plus, you can also pick up your digital comics right from their website because they're a partner of Comixology. And they also have the My Digital Comics site on there. So you can get all of those right from their site, and that goes towards adding to your discount from DCBService.com. So be sure to be doing all your shopping right from DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, I'm going to wait till the end of the show to announce what we're going to be doing for InStockTrades.com because Jim and I are going to announce what our theme is going to be for the 300th episode, and you can actually buy this from InStockTrades.com if you don't have it. So we'll save that for the end of the episode. But I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for supporting Raging Bullets. And as always, we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the book, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
Jim, our first review this episode is going to be of Batgirl number 5. Gail Simone is the writer. Ardian, and I know I'm butchering this one. It's S-Y-A-F. I probably butchered the first name, so I apologize. Vincente Fuentes is also one of the pencilers, and he's also the inker. Ulysses Arola is on colors. Dave Sharp letterer. Adam Hughes cover art. Katie Kubert associate editor. Bobby Chase is the editor, and Batman created by Bob Kane. Now, I want to apologize in advance because I know I tore some names apart there, and I really want to apologize because I'm having a real tough time right now deciding on my number 1 book, but this is on the short list to be it. And it's every issue. This one in particular was a home run for me because we introduced this new villain, Gretel, and I'm going to be honest with you. Since reading this issue, I've been trying to scour the internet for information about Hansel and Gretel to see if this 338 is something I can figure out. 338, when you do a search for Gretel 338, leads to page numbers, addresses. There's a whole bunch bunch of stuff associated with Gretel and 338, none of which seems to link to this potential story. But there's info out there if you're looking for it.
Wait, you honestly don't know what 338's about?
No, what's 338 about?
Dude, it's laid out in the book. It's beautifully hidden, and it was actually a fun journey finding it.
And what's it about?
I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm not going to ruin it. But I personally know, and I think it's wonderful.
Well, that's great. Good for you.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one Googling 338.
But the reason why I even mention stuff like that is if I really enjoy a title, and a title's really grabbing me, we've talked on the show many times, it's that book that makes me think when I'm not reading it. I actually care to look for things on the internet. This is outside of my reading of the issue that I started doing. I wonder if there's anything on there about Gretel and stuff. That's a sign of a great title when you do that. Not just the rereading it multiple times, it's that I'm driving home from work and I'm like, huh. Do you think there's a Hansel? And if so, what color's his hair?
I tell you, this is not the nursery rhyme that I've ever heard of when we're dealing with Gretel. She's got some definite issues going on, and I'm thinking it's probably because of the whole Hansel and Gretel. Why wasn't it Gretel and Hansel? Why did Hansel get the top billing? I'm thinking this is, okay, hear me roar. I am Gretel, hear me roar. I think Hansel is, bye-bye Hansel. I think he's gone. I think she dealt with him first, and now she's, announcing her presence to the world.
Because she can't get other roles?
Oh, hey, talk about typecasting.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do after being Gretel? Yeah, that's it. I guess you dye your hair and go punk.
She's rocking the look. It's working for her.
This book, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about it, I think that's really important in any title with Barbara Gordon, I love the character. But one of the things I love about her is her humanity, her vulnerability, yet the intelligence, too. I love the thought process. I love that she feels like a real person with real concerns, and yet you know that she's smart and she'll find a way to win. She won't give up. But to me, we all have these moments in life where we feel down, we feel out, and yet Batgirl always finds a way to keep going. We've seen it in Birds of Prey. We're seeing it in this series. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about Barbara Gordon. It's her perseverance. And whether she's in the wheelchair or not, I think those are essential character traits that need to be presented. It's really being presented well in this series. And I really like the solo focus with her. I'm glad she's back in Birds, or I guess. We'll see what happens with her in that series, because, there's all kinds of question marks on where she is actually in Birds right now. But I really am enjoying this solo exploration of the character. And, this whole thing, I don't believe in ghosts, and how it plays into her mother being back in her life. I thought that was a cool twist. I love the Gordon family. Not just Barbara, but Jim Gordon. Having Mom come back in, this is a character who I don't know much about other than as things that Barbara and Jim Gordon have talked about throughout the years. Great opportunity to explore some unexplored territory with a character that's being brought in. And how's Jim Gordon going to react to this? Why did she leave? Because she alludes to in this issue, I left, I can't tell you why. So there's something there. There's a story to be told. So this is not, as is usual with stuff that's been going on with the Gordon family, nothing's going to be easy with Mom being back. I like that twist, though. I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah, that was a great way to end issue 4, where it just shows up, opens the doors like, oh, don't you recognize me? I'm Mom. Hi. Boom. That was just a great lead into. And then when we jumped into this issue, they didn't take it off right there. We got right into the action. We got right into the, just the drama going on the bridge that, she's dealing with, the introduction of the 338, introduction of Gretel, and then we go back to Mom. And I loved how that segued and that just played out, because I don't know about you, but when I first, when 5 came out, I pulled it out, and first thing I started reading, I'm like, oh, come on, tell me about the Mom!
Well, that was maybe for about 10 seconds, until this whole thing was happening with the, the family, who's the 4 little King Midases. This series, artwork-wise, has really been tremendous. I love the costume. It's funny, I'm noticing on female characters the functional boots, and I'm really digging that. Only because I've always been a fan of the Barbara Gordon original 60s costume with the heels and everything, just like I liked Wonder Woman's costume that way. But it's funny how I don't think anything is lost from the costume going to these boots, but I notice it. You know what I mean? In the sense that it looks a little more functional, especially at a time where the costume's been reworked anyway for the new 52. I like the changes. I like the tweaks. I'm very into this character. And her appearances outside of this title have been really terrific as well, which is a great thing for the character. We've seen her in Nightwing. We've seen her in Birds of Prey. And those appearances, to me, have been very rich and very essential to those titles. So the guest appearances of this character throughout DC, I think editorially, they're doing a great job. I don't know if it's writers interacting, editors interacting, how that's working out, but it's really been very smooth overall, the appearances of other characters in the DCU, and Barbara Gordon has really benefited from that.
Am I the only one, when you started going through talking about the boots, Patsy Cline, boots are made for walking, just started going through my head? Am I the only one here?
I was thinking, well, that song, I always think of Sinatra's Daughter when I think of that song, but
okay.
Yeah, but no. I didn't think of that until you mentioned it just now. These boots are made for butt kicking.
Yeah, she's stomping.
You know what I really like about finding out what happened to her? I like the way that we're finding it out in little pieces along the way. Like, the neural implant that would allow her to walk. This ghost thing is really, it's a way of fleshing out information we want to know without, filling us with all of that background information right now. You know what I mean? I like this delivery because I want to see her in action. I want to enjoy great Batgirl adventure storytelling. And I think that's the way I connect with characters. So much as I said before the new 52 that when we knew what direction this all was going in, that I wanted this history of the DCU series. Now seeing this in practice and seeing these characters laid out this way, I don't want that. I want to find out things this way. I think this has really been organic and a cool way to do it. Gail Simone's going to get to it when she's ready to, as far as laying out anything else that we need to know for where the character's going. This is really working for me. I don't know how you're feeling about that.
Oh, no, I'm head over heels for this. And it's the nice long play. It's the slow play. It's the building. It's the crescendo. It's, implant a little piece here, little piece here, little piece here. And then when you have a big moment, it sweeps it through. It's a great feel and a great, just vibe going that I'm enjoying. And I know that the creative teams aren't being rushed with this. Mm-hmm. They're not locking themselves into one story immediately or, saying this all happened, and then they got to improvise later on down the line. No, they're going to play it out as it affects the current universe. It comes out as we need to know. We know the broad categories, we know the broad stories, but eventually everything will play out. So it's got a really cool feel to it, and it makes a complete universal relaunch seem like we both have new stories going on, but we have this long history. We didn't lose the history. We didn't lose the past. They just condensed things. They changed it. They made it more accessible right now coming into the game. And I think it made me even appreciate it even more. And I had a somewhat history with the universe. I'd like coming into this. I like learning this as it plays out. There's, now a lot of stuff that, it's coming out new. Well, it's new for me, but it's, new for you as well. So it in a way puts everybody on a nice level playing field.
See, I've been reading this universe since the 70s, and I feel it's a new past. And I'm surprised at how much I'm enjoying that. And let me clarify that. I'm finding that there's tangible things from the character's past that are in place, that are things I'm comfortable with. But it's the vague things, the things that haven't been fleshed out, that haven't been laid out, that haven't been put into a concrete form, that make me believe that there's an opportunity for, just for example, this writer, Gail Simone, to take this character and tell us new information about her past that we never knew before, and we don't have to worry about it contradicting things that occurred in the previous universe, because that was just that. It was a whole different universe. And I guess I was worried about that I wouldn't like that before this all happened. Now that it has, I'm finding the comfort you're mentioning. So the way when you were going through, I'm like, oh yeah, I get what he's saying. It's very comfortable and all that. I'm finding those connections that you're mentioning. But I'm also surprised at how much for myself I'm liking there's an open area to all of this, if that makes sense. There's there's like a lot of wiggle room to play around with that as needed. And I think it makes the characters feel fresh. And I don't know, it's just something that I'm surprised, especially, and Barbara Gordon's a great character to talk about this with, because this is a character who's extremely important to me, who I've really, before reading comics, as a kid, the 60s Batman show, that character on there was just one of the more important characters to me. She was Batman Robin. These are like my foundation pieces. And, for this character, for me to be so comfortable with some wiggle room there is really surprising to me. And I like that. I'm glad that it turned out that way. And I think it's the quality of the books that's making me feel that way. I think, if you've got a quality writer who understands the character and you've got that comfort and familiarity you're mentioning, you're going to get that. And this is a book I know we're jumping back to start talking about some of the New 52 titles that we haven't talked about in a while before we're completely finished with the New 52, which we're going to finish next week. But I got to the point where I'm like, I want to talk about this Gretel issue so bad because it's really good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were chomping at the bit on this one, and couldn't hold back. And it's funny because in this issue, we have a cool introduction of a new villain. We have some great personal story developments, in Barbara's life with the mom coming back. But we also have just some great hero action fight sequence moments. And it's that balance of the story playing out that I really digged about this. I really digged about this issue. There was never a moment where I was like, okay, downtime. It was always moving. It was always going forward, whether it was the personal story development, this new villain development, or just that general, butt-kicking, Barbara Gordon, Batgirl action sequences that I was just like, dang, this is cool.
One of the things I liked about the introduction of the Whitaker mob, I saw that being like a gang that she was going to fight for the whole issue. I didn't know where that was going. I didn't see it leading to the introduction of a different kind of villain, because then it led to this, because they lay out this whole thing like they've been underground for years. So I'm like, okay, what have they been doing underground? And what secrets is she going to find out about the Whitaker mob? Well, there's none. They've really been controlled by Gretel, which I did not see coming. I loved how this 338 thing came in. And I guess the real thing with the Whitaker mob, we saw them trying to get the $3.38 because of the 338 theme that has to go on. But what happens to Gretel? Is it because of the killing? Is that why the dad had to kill the kids and then himself? Is it the moment where he killed the kids that give her that euphoric? Because she's a meta, right? Is that how you're taking it with her?
Yeah, I'm completely taking that she's got the meta powers, and I'm thinking it's like a mind control, but it's not even just a mind control. There's some connection to the spiritual side as well, and that's where she's getting that energy. Whether it's the energy comes from the kill, or the energy comes from that point. The control over the body reaches its apex, reaches its peak, and that's when the energy releases. And maybe that could be the end of the control, or that could be the end of the life. I'm not exactly sure how that's playing out yet. I'm still trying to piece together the parts on that, and that's something I want to see what's going to flow, with Gretel, where it ends with her.
And it was interesting because that moment she punched Batgirl and was trying to really delay Batgirl only specifically so she could go through that euphoric moment she went through. You see that smoke coming out of her mouth, which I'm not sure if that is some kind of energy release due to what's happening to her, just the weather, because we know it's cold, very cold weather, which that could be her breath at that moment as well. But that whole moment was something captivating to me, especially in later read-throughs, where I started paying a lot more attention to what was going on with her. Because, in earlier issues, I'm always focused on Barbara. I'm following her and what she's going through. So I got to admit, the first time through, I didn't really notice that as much as I did later. Because, Barbara's my target. But the whole bit with the dad, and I loved the dialogue about the two victims, the husband and wife. I liked seeing people in Gotham, and her thing that's people in Gotham. That's what makes them special and things like that. Because you always, when you go to certain towns, that's something where that's so New York or that's so LA or that's, I mean, there's certain qualities that in certain places you go through, you associate with people from that particular area. It makes sense that in Gotham, being a big city with a certain theme, that there's going to be certain qualities from people who go through the hardships that they have to go through, yet they keep sticking it out in Gotham, that these kind of qualities would exist in the population. I thought there was something cool, because how else do you survive in Gotham unless at some point in time there's people who are helping each other out, right?
Yeah, we always joke around, would you want to live in Gotham? And right here, you kind of see a prime example why you should move to Cleveland. If you're the DCU, come to Cleveland. There's no metas here. It's, relatively safe, I would imagine. And, this right here, it's a great character moment of the person. And when I mean character, I'm not talking like character as in the character. I'm talking like personal growth, personal character, his inner strength. This is a father with a child, and first reaction is always going to be protected, to be protective, but he also is going to do the right thing. And I thought that is just a cool statement that they risk their lives to save this guy that just tried to kill them, because they recognize that, hey, there's something loopy going on here. This guy isn't right in the head, and they're trying, and they grab onto the rope and keep him from falling in. And I thought that was it was a neat moment, and it was something I was like, yeah. And then you get Barbara's inner dialogue going on when she's commenting on stuff like this. And she even, like, in the fight sequence, when he jumps over the edge and throws the rope, and catches a leg, she's like, hey, got lucky on that one. There's not like this over-the-bearing ego. It's, she realizes she is a human. She's capable of making mistakes, and it comes through in her inner dialogue, comes through the external stuff. We saw with that one moment a couple issues ago where she froze when she was, with the gun, and now even here she's still acknowledging, hey, that happened, but I'm moving through, I'm working past it. And again, prime example here, she didn't freeze up once. She moved through, but she recognized that it could be a possibility, and she's got to keep on her toes so it doesn't happen.
She does notice the gun later in the issue, though.
Yeah.
And she references it, which was something that I thought was interesting. And I didn't know if she noticed something specific about the gun or if it was just like an afterthought comment, as far as it's still in her head. But I really liked that acknowledgement. And it's, like it's not completely gone away. It made me wonder what was going on with her in that moment. One of the other things I really liked about her, too, and it's something... She goes out and does this, and I think your goal when you're a superhero is to be just that, a superhero. You want to accomplish everything. You want to save everybody. You want it to end clean. I like that with her. She saved this couple right then and there. If she hadn't been there, they would have been dead. The police did not arrive until after the fact. So even though Gretel got away, even though the 3 members of the family died, she still saved the innocent victims of the couple in that situation. I really liked that. And I think in some ways maybe she inspired that couple to help out when the father went over the edge, after she threw the line. People are like, wait, this is the lady that just saved us, so shouldn't we do something to help out too? I thought there was something cool in the energy of that moment. But when she's walking away afterwards, there's no thought in her mind of what she did for the husband and wife. It was totally about the 3 men who died at her feet, getting bashed in the skull. The lack of victory in those moments in her mind. But, I mean, who couldn't high-five her for what she did, even just as a citizen? You know what I mean? I thought there was something really cool about that moment. And I liked that seeing Barbara, she wants to be perfect. She wants to be better. She wants to be more. And there's a drive there to do that. And I don't know, there was something I just really, in that whole moment, I was really connecting with. Because I think there's a lesson for all of us to be learned from her as a character. Because I think we all go through, you and I actually off the air, we both had rough weeks, which are normal. You have that in any life, in a job, any career, things like that. But there's certain things that make you keep going on. Now, it was nothing in the level of what Barbara's going through, but But what I mean is, I think comic book characters and just characters in television and film, whatever, in general, the really strong characters, the really human characters are the ones you connect with. And somehow they take you that extra 2 steps. You go, well, she can get through that, I don't know, I can keep going. You know what I mean? I think there's something fun about that and inspiring. And I think that's why it's important to look to escapist fiction for sometimes that recharge There's something about it. And I don't know. It was something I really dug about this book and the character. In case you can't tell, I really like this book.
Yeah. I like the quiet moment she has afterwards.
Yes.
Where she's reflecting on, could I have saved them? Yeah, I know they're bad guys, but did I do it? And, she's questioning whether she did enough to save it. Could she have done something differently? And it's part of it is connected because of the whole mother, with the mother coming back, because she even says, what would drive a parent to do this? And it leads right into the mother segment. I love the fact that, she saved 2 innocent people's lives. And, well, actually more than 2, because those guys, if she hadn't shown up, they would have killed probably everybody on that bridge or most of the people on that bridge. They weren't just going to stop with that first couple. They were going to go down the line and start, killing everybody. So she saved, a bridge load of people. But still, there's that questioning in her mind: could I have could I have done something different? Could I have saved them all? And I love seeing that because, as regular people, we always have those moments where, if you have that good moment, you're like, yeah, but you're like, it wasn't, could I have done more? And you have that eating away at you. It's a natural reaction, and it's a very human reaction, especially when you're in this line of work where where it's like, saving people's lives. You want to save everybody, and you can't always do it. A lot of, rescue workers have issues with this. Police, fire, the various civil servants, and anybody who has actually tried to say has been responsible for saving somebody else's life. There's always going to be questions. There's always going to be that little bit raised in their in their mind, and I love seeing that out of her.
If you're going to open a coffee shop with the name of Beantasm, it better have the best coffee ever. But I really like this. I mean, this was kind of cool that there was, this whole little theme there. Her talking about how, I carb up when I'm upset. And this situation, the mother left them. She was gone. Barbara doesn't know the story. That gray area, I mean, there's no opportunity for closure with that. You know what I mean? So we're seeing years of frustration from her, which is something we don't get to see explored with this character. And this is the great part about going to this area. You mentioned earlier you couldn't wait to get to this, and I was with you. I couldn't wait to get to it either. But I like the pacing of this issue was really important to me because I think that's really important. It's one of the things I like about Gail Simone's writing, and one of the reasons why she remains my favorite writer is I love the pacing that every issue there's opportunity for action and something that just gets you going, and then there's a mystery laid out. Then we go back to Mom, and we have a quieter moment. You mentioned the quiet moment in the alley, but then this leads to this kind of quiet moment between the two of them where there's a lot going on, a lot of character and story development, but we've had that action. It's a great balance in the pacing of the book. And when we hit this moment, I was ready for it. The anticipation has been built. Now you're laying it on us. And we don't know, we know what Mom's kind of back for. She wants to be friends. But, the look on Mom's face, is that because of her worrying that Barbara won't take her back? Is there more to it than that? What is Mom coming back for? What's the story there? We've seen in the last year, we saw things that were going on with the brother. What's up with Mom? What don't we know? What led her to leave? Was it something with Jim Gordon? Was she threatened? Did she have issues that we don't know about? What is going on with her? And more teasing with this, which I thought was really great and well done. You don't want to feed us it all right away. And I like that she responded in a way, I couldn't help but thinking to myself, boy, I'd respond in the same way, if I was abandoned like that. I was adopted, so I come at it from that, but I don't feel like I was abandoned because I was adopted when I was an infant. So my parents are my parents. I don't have this connection to the people that gave birth to me. I have no idea who they are, don't care, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all. I've had a very fulfilled life with 2 great parents. In her case, though, she was actually abandoned by a parent she knew. So there's not even that part where you can come back and say, well, she didn't even know the parent then. No, she did. So this is a big problem for her because was she the older of the 2? Or was her brother? I think her brother was older, right? I thought
isn't she the oldest?
Yes. Yeah, you're right, because it was James Jr., I think, came second. So, I don't know. This is a pretty major issue here. This detective, McKenna, her partner died. I could understand her still following Batgirl, because if you think about Batgirl's recent cases, they haven't ended clean. There's 3 deaths. Batgirl was on the scene. She left before the police had an opportunity to investigate. So now she has been leaving the scene of crimes, And it's natural that she would be part of an investigation. And I like how this is being handled, because the police can't just gloss over that. They have to keep a file on her. They have to keep pursuing her. McKenna has personal emotional reasons to be doing this. And I like that Gordon was acknowledging the fact that that's on the table. And I don't know that Gordon did the right thing putting her on this case. Obviously, for storytelling purposes, it is. But you got to think about Gotham. We're dealing with a police force where we know there's corruption. We know that Gordon probably has a limited number of officers that he can deal with. But also, his whole staff has to be, in some ways, similar to McKenna. Meaning they've all been through heavy emotional issues. You're dealing with the Joker. You're dealing with the Penguin. You're dealing with Two-Face. All these crazy villains. So they've got to all be ones who he's constantly keep an eye on how balanced they are. That conversation he had with her is probably one he has more often than not with anybody being put on any case, because there's probably a ton of personal issues. So I think certain rules that you would normally say Gordon was in the wrong for that. You got to say, how many times has he had to trust an officer with issues like this, conflicts like this, because you've got to put everybody on the Joker. You've got to put everybody on Two-Face. Or, there's 3 officers in the hospital who are his, lead detectives. And so this is a situation where it's funny how I gave him a pass, but I could justify it too. Which is, again, me thinking way off the page. But it was something I noticed. I'm like, is he right to put McKenna on the case? And why would he do this? And at first I was mad at him. Then I started justifying it, which shows you how much I like Jim Gordon.
I'll be honest with you, I was never mad at him for this. I actually liked the fact that he did put her on it. And part of the reasoning, I was, behind Gordon going with her. He had to know what she's doing. Rule number 1, when you're, interrogations, when you're asking questions, you never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. What you're asking the question is you want to see how they react to it, how they answer to it. When Gordon asked her about the whole history, he knew exactly she was probably still doing research. He knew she was still, preparing for it and studying her and following up on her. He needed to see how she reacted to it. And throwing her on the case is, one, keeping her focused on the one thing. If he didn't put her on the Batgirl case, if he told her, hey, I want you working this Two-Face case, he knew she would be doing double duty. She would still be doing Batgirl on her own, plus then she would be doing this other case, and that would cause her, investigation to suffer. Both investigations, if you're not putting 100% into it, you're going to get 2 bad investigations. I'd rather put her on this case where she has that personal, drive, where she has that personal grudge, she has that personal attachment to it, knowing she's going to focus on it. He knows her well enough to know that she's not going to go vigilante, or, maybe there's a risk of it, but he's got to, trust in her, trust in who she is. And I think that was a great move. And I love seeing that Gordon called her up personally and told her this and actually had this conversation.
See, one area where I'm going to disagree with you on that is I disagree with you on her emotional objectivity. If I was in charge of her in any other city other than Gotham, that's why the Gotham justification was really important to me in that sequence. Look how personal this is for her. She's obsessed, Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really obsessed at this point. And here's the point. In investigating this case, Batgirl, we know Batgirl's not the villain here. But this girl, is she going to miss? How many clues is she going to miss focusing on Batgirl?
But if you put her out there and tell her not to go after Batgirl, she's still going to do it. She's still going to be out there, and you're going to lose. You're going to lose her on whatever case she's supposed to be working, and lose her on this one. I would rather have her.
No. But that's why in a normal city, and that's where the Gotham justification comes in. In a normal city, you would then put the person on leave. There's all kinds of different options as far as what you would do in that case. You wouldn't put that person on that case. You would bet. See, and that's where then all of a sudden, what happens to that case? I would put.
She's going to focus on the Batgirl case,
Jim.
She's going to do it, so you put her on the thing. Who she is. A cop. First and foremost, you got to trust that, and he knows her well enough to say, "Hey, you're one of my best. You're the best I've got." He knows her well enough to know that in the end, she's going to do the right thing. In the end, she's going to do what she needs to do. In the end, she's going to do the job. Why? Because she's one of the good guys. And you got to have faith in that. If he didn't have faith in it, then he'd have to get her off the force, completely get rid of her. Well, guess what? That's a bad idea as well, because you're losing a good cop. This way, he knows where she is. He knows where she's going. And if, she starts, straying, if she starts, overlooking clues, he can pull her back in. He can rein her back in. So he's got some control over that way by knowing what she's focusing on. If she was supposed to focus on some other case and was doing both it, you'd have that issue. You'd have that problem. I think.
So you're going to trust someone who lied to you in a phone conversation multiple times.
Well,
this is one of your officers who's lied to you in multiple times, and you're going to trust that person.
Because one, he probably already knows she's lying.
But what you're saying is a contradiction.
No.
Yes, it is, because how do you trust somebody who has lied to you? She just told him first thing off the phone, I was crocheting. What is she crocheting over there? A workout bench? Well, I mean, the whole part of the phone call, right from the beginning, because she does not want to admit to him that she's not over this yet. And I don't know. And again, first of all, I'm saying this is a brilliant sequence of events, and I think it's very realistic. And I understand why Gordon did what he did in Gotham. In any other city, though, she should be getting help.
But you can't really compare it to any other city, because this is a completely different type of universe. So that's why when I look at this, I'm not comparing it to, say, if this was present-day Cleveland.
But I like the reality of this.
We're both thinking of it as because this is Gotham. But that's why I'm saying it's a good idea. Because this is Gotham. Because this is inside the DC universe. This is inside, this type of craziness. If this was real life and it wasn't Batgirl, say it was just some person, no, you pull her off it. You don't put her on that case. You put her on, forced leave. You do, all that, whatever you need to do. But because this isn't the real world, because this is the comic book universe, because this is the DC universe, and this is Gotham, you have to do it this way.
See, and one of the things I liked about this was the reality of the whole thing. See, I thought it was very realistically handled due to Gotham. So I'm applauding the reality of it. I'm applauding that I questioned Gordon, because you should in that moment, because she lied to him multiple times. I don't know that Gordon is necessarily thinking to himself, I 100% trust her. I think he is hoping that he can trust in who she is at her core, and at the end that it will turn out that way. But he has no guarantee of that. The situation could go wrong in so many ways. But like you're saying, due to Gotham, which is what my point was,
right? Due
to this being Gotham and the craziness of the situation, it's something where he has to rely on that. I agree with you that he knows that she's lying. I think there's a question mark there. I don't know. There's something I loved about the moment that I even cared, that I was thinking, what is Gordon thinking? What is he doing here? And all that. And that I had to justify it. I don't know. I think there was something in one page. I think that's insane. I spent a lot of time thinking about this page.
The thing I really loved about this sequence was she's training for Batgirl. And it's not just, studying up on her thing. You see that massive weight set in the middle of the living room. This was something she just added to it. I don't think this was her regular house the way it was before. After her last dealings with all this, she's training, she's preparing for the battle. She's getting ready for her one-on-one with Batgirl. And I loved seeing that, just that determination and that intensity. It kind of was a nice anticipation for what's to come.
But that's part of the problem. She's training for Batgirl instead of training to handle anything that comes her way in Gotham. Instead of training her focus on being open-minded to the situation that's coming in. And that's one of the things that I'm loving about this scenario is I'm questioning her. I'm questioning how wise it was to put her on this case because of it. And I think that is something that should be questioned here. Because she's not mentally well. She's not healthy to be doing this. And I think that type of situation and that type of intensity is something that I really like about this series, because being a police officer is tough work. It's something I have a ton of respect for. Seeing your partner die is going to be a trauma that you're going to go through. I will never go through that in my life. I'll have coworkers die, in the sense that they pass away. I've had that happen already. And that in itself is an emotionally hard thing to deal with. I just had that this year, actually, as a matter of fact. A coworker passed away. that in itself is an emotionally hard thing to deal with. In the line of duty, in this situation here, where you're blaming Batgirl, and I can understand how this detective's arriving at that conclusion, is something that is going to have a pivotal effect on her. So I question, and I still will question, how wise it was for Gordon to put her on this. I agree for storytelling purposes, it's great, and I agree in Gotham it makes sense, but I think in any other city, in realistic situations, it wouldn't happen that way. Well, I don't know that, you know what? Okay, let's use Cleveland as an example. We're talking about the inner city of Cleveland. We know right now with cutbacks and things like that, manpower has been cut back in Cleveland. That's not just something that Cleveland's facing. Big cities around the country are facing that problem. There are budget cuts that are going on all over the place. The economy's not great. So I guess how many times does this type of thing have to happen because the superior officer is in a situation that Jim Gordon's in, where there is no choice? So I guess it is something that you can connect with the real world today. I don't know how unrealistic this is. You know what I mean? I don't know enough. I can't pretend that I know enough about the inner workings of the police. So if there's anybody out there that's connected with police officers, please understand I'm speculating as a citizen on the outside. But I love the fact that there is a respect on my end for the trauma that a police officer would go through with the death of their partner and then being put on a case involving somebody who you think is responsible for that. I don't know, there's something, could they have done something to save that person? There's a vendetta here. And she's just itching and looking for something to pin on Batgirl. At least it looks that way. We'll see what she does. But I'm with you. She's training to, to throw down.
She's training for the next encounter. And that's actually really a cool thing. I was glad to see that.
I wonder if she's going to get stuck with the 338 thing.
Oh, we know who she'd go after immediately.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Well, not just by her own choice. I don't know. It's funny. We spent a lot of time on that sequence, but it is something that emotionally I really connected with that. On the next page, I love that I can connect with that in a different way, where you've got Barbara Gordon researching on the internet. Maybe that is why I did it. I don't know. Maybe subconsciously she kind of pushed me to keep looking for it. I love that she is trying to find different triggers for it. I don't know if she looked for a Hansel, but but I was trying to find out if there was a Hansel. But the situation for her, she has to stop her investigation because the reality is she sees the 338 situation. She knows Bruce Wayne's part of it. I'm liking this whole Bruce Wayne scenario that he's trying to save and rebuild Gotham. He's trying to find a different way to use his funds. We've seen a lot of the bumbling billionaire playboy. I like this MO with Bruce that they're exploring right now. It's just kind of a different way to look at Bruce. Bruce is rethinking since he's returned from everything that went on post RIP and then his travels through time back to present day and stuff like that. He's looking at a way to rebuild Gotham, to use his money towards a positive manner, to try to make this city bright again, to give back his image of where he thinks his parents would have liked the city to go and things like that. I don't know. Something really cool about that whole MO, and her recognizing from the outside looking in how important Bruce Wayne is now. She was inspired by Batman to become Batgirl. She looked at that as, I want to do this. This is my next route. This is, I want to be that person who can be an agent of change like Batman is. I want to stop down crime. Now she's looking at Batman and saying, Bruce Wayne, and saying, hey, he's actually more important now out of the costume than he even is in the costume. And I don't know, there's something about that commentary and how this kind of organically plays into the stuff that Scott Snyder's doing with the Court of Owls and why they would be coming after him as well. I don't know, all of it there's a lot of really cool energy here between these Bat books that I think writers are doing really a great job of picking up on tiny bits even of threads that each other are doing and saying, wow, I can do this kind of thing in my book, kind of reacting to all that and show how my character would view this and how it would engage them in a way that maybe Bruce didn't even intend. But the fact that she couldn't get a hold of him because of how busy he is and, that just being the whole play, I liked how she has to go save Bruce and why. Something kind of cool about that. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I like the fact that when she swoops in, she's like, "I got this, Mr. Wayne," kind of letting him keep the cover of the Bruce Wayne persona. She even comments, like, even in his messed up state, Bruce would destroy this guy, but there are witnesses present. And you see Bruce telling her, "Hey, I'm going to talk to Tommy. You run." Get rid of the witnesses so Bruce Wayne can do his thing. I loved seeing how that played out, and then it ends up being the swerve where Gretel was after Wayne the whole time. That for me was just a great play on it, a great usage again of boom, 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 surprise, here's the ending, because I'll be honest, I was shocked. I didn't see her coming in and taking over Bruce. I saw this all play out. I thought this was kind of a neat thing. I was wondering where this was going to go, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, slap myself in the head and go, I should have seen that coming.
Yeah. That was something cool about that sequence of events. I also liked with that 338 when she saw it, how it was painted over there, and she's trying to justify maybe it's a coincidence, but I would say when anything's spray painted, that the number that's looking like that, there's no coincidence there.
yeah, she's going after it. And again, it's really beautiful looking action sequences. This was, part of the strength of this story was the emotional connections, was these personal feelings, but these physical action sequences, we got two wonderfully laid out. The non-traditional panels that we're seeing more of in the comics that I'm absolutely loving, and just you kind of can feel the swoosh of the kicks and the punches, and seeing Barbara's style is going to be a little bit different than Dick's, a little bit different than Bruce's. She has her own fighting that it's more personalized to her, and I love seeing that.
What's with the changing hair color of Gretel? Is it because of too many gumdrops, or what's going on with that? Like, how is her hair changing? Do you think she's doing that with dye? Do you think that has something to do with her meta powers? Is it the old witch? I know it's because trying to put her in the oven, or wasn't that the story of Hansel and Gretel?
Yeah.
She's trying to cook them for
dinner.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with her.
Maybe she's just up on latest fashion trends, or she's inspired by the music she's listening to. She probably has Pink rocking in her iPod right now, and so she's jamming. Okay, let me go with that.
What does Pink have to do with her hair color?
Well, her hair color's pink.
Well, Pink doesn't always.
Pink is. Well, she always has like at least one streak of pink in her color.
Not always. No, sometimes she's just plain out blonde.
She always has the color in there. It's her, kind of her thing. You can't have blonde hair if your name's Pink. You got to have at least some connection back to it.
Okay.
Now, is this last final page, one had me excited, but again, I'm excited for the next issue because I want to see, Barbara versus Bruce. How much of Bruce is actually in there? How much of his knowledge and his fighting skills has crossed over with the 338, or is he just going to keep swinging the crowbar? Is it like, does the person that is, under control, do they still have parts of them left? Because if Bruce has full control of his factions, Barbara's tough, but this is Batman. She ain't going to be able to take him. But if there is still some of the zombification of him, will Barbara be will she be able to take him? What's she going to do? How's she going to play it? Because we saw her take down Tommy, and at first she was holding back. She's like, I got to drop this dude. He's going to wake up in the hospital instead of me waking up in the morgue, but I got to drop him hard. Well, now it's Bruce. Dropping him hard isn't going to be that easy.
This will be an interesting test. First of all, I love the fact that it's a crowbar that he's going after her with. That seems to be just kind of a, if you remember the Bat family and you're going to be attacked, it's going to be a crowbar. But I guess my question would be, from everybody that we've seen in this so far, they're controlled by this whole thing, but yet they clearly know relationships between people and stuff like that, because even the dad knew that he was killing his kids.
Yeah.
So, and here's the question, did she make him jump, or did he make him jump? Did the dad jump because he killed his kids? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In the beginning? I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm anticipating next issue seeing how much awareness Bruce has. And I think the more awareness he has, it's to her advantage. Can Batman overcome this on his own? Or what will she have to do to help him overcome it? Like, we don't know yet what causes this, what triggers it. And I'm very interested, I should say. I am very interesting, too. But I'm very I'm very interested.
If you do say so yourself.
Yeah.
Okay,
I really didn't mean it as
You're
a
really
way.
interesting fellow.
I am. I'm very interesting. Well, that's it. We're done with the discussion. No. I'm very interested to see next issue the nature of the power, because there's so much about Gretel we don't know. This is the way to introduce a villain. And really to introduce, we talk so much about Batman being a great detective story. You've taken Barbara Gordon now and put her back in the costume as Batgirl. Now we're really giving an opportunity to see Oracle as the agent. Oracle doing the combat. Oracle using her mental skills, her mental faculties to tackle these cases. And there's something interesting about seeing her in this role with the skill set that we know she's had as Oracle. I liked seeing her at the computer researching things, but also her being the field agent, her being in that situation where she's just not getting the information anymore from Dinah. She's getting the information herself. I don't know. It's just an interesting new role for her, because I don't feel we've lost Oracle in this. I feel like we're seeing Oracle imagined in a different way. What if Oracle regained the ability to walk early on? What if, there's those skill sets were developed in a combination, kind of a hybrid way? And that's something that I really like, because this, as much as I remember Barbara Gordon being like the adventurer and, the librarian and that kind of stuff, I don't remember seeing this much of the detective skills of Barbara Gordon growing up. And I like seeing that being brought in, where we're seeing the cyber geek and all that kind of stuff bring that. It's very contemporary, and it's something I'm just really enjoying about this title a great deal. I love her vulnerability.
Yeah,
because I feel like she can handle herself, she can handle her own, and when I'm saying vulnerability, I don't mean as Batgirl. I mean the fact that for us, because we're riding along with her dialogue, it's the emotional vulnerability. It makes me respect more her ability to continue on and persevere. And I think it's the reason why she does solve these cases and she does win and she is a survivor, is because she just finds a way to keep going in spite of it all. And that's something that could be coming from everything that she went through in the past too. I don't know, it's something really cool about this book.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And a character we really didn't talk too much about, but I'm really digging, is the roommate.
Mm-hmm.
That is just, little bits here, and every single time she makes an appearance, I love it. When the mom was first showed up at the doorway, she's like, "Oh, come on in." It's like, "We'll leave." I just liked how she was open. Then she's trying to get Barbara, "Hey, if you want to talk, I'm here." It's that connection, that personalized. It's that grounded in the real world. It makes me wonder if Barbara will tell her about the secret, will tell her she's Batgirl, or if because of who the character is, she wouldn't want to put that that unnecessary pressure. That it's tough being a hero, but it's also got to be tough being the person who knows the secret, being the support structure for the hero. Like Alfred's got to have one of the roughest jobs out there, because not only does he know about the secrets, he worries about them. He knows when they're in extreme danger, and he knows when things are going bad for him. Would Barbara want to do this to her, that roommate? I want to see that. I want to see if she does, if she doesn't, if she acknowledges, does she think about it? Where does this go?
It's funny. I have two minds about the roommate. Everything you just said, I think would be super cool if it goes in that direction, and I agree with you. That's a definite possibility. There's another part of me that's wondering, what don't we know about the roommate? And in Gotham, I think you always have to suspect everybody. And I'm not saying that's... I agree. Everything you just said, amen. I agree that's a really strong possibility. I think the roommate would be a cool confidant. And I see if it's going in that direction, Batgirl wrestling with that possibility. I also think that eventually the roommate's no dummy. Barbara's going to have to be really crafty to make sure she doesn't slip up when it comes to the roommate.
Yeah, she's going to have to figure stuff out.
So, you can't live with somebody and I think do this and not eventually get busted.
Well, you're going to eventually, even just like the late nights, that one issue a couple back where Barbara kind of really got messed up. The roommate's like, "Hey, what's going on here?" It's like, "No, it's okay. It really is okay." She's like, "Okay, I'm going to let it go this time. But, we see this again, we're going to have a different conversation." And again, that was a very realistic moment, kind of giving her space, but she's not going to say, "I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this." There's something going on here. I
really like the newest version of the costume. There's something about this costume that's really growing on me. I don't know why I'm noting that again. It just was something, I'm looking at the sequence where, she kicked the driver.
Yeah.
And you kind of see the boots and the whole little flow. There are little tiny tweaks to a costume. I don't know. For me, the Barbara Gordon Batgirl costume is very iconic. And there's something important to me. It's a redesign in my eyes that they were very well served to stick to the roots of what the costume's all about while making these changes that make it fit in with the new trends with the Bat Family costumes. She feels like she's part of that core group while at the same time having a style that's her own, which Batgirl always had. And I don't know, there's something about that I just really wanted to know, because I think this is a very pretty book, and it's something that I just consistency-wise, I love the purple inside the cape. That's a look that I think is really important to attach to the Batgirl character. I don't know. There's the whole layout of the costume is something that has really grown on me, and I really do feel that it does represent very well the rich history of the character, while giving us again that sense that this is a new universe. You know, there is the history that's there. There's a vagueness to what elements of it still exist, and I actually am finding that something I really like. I know I said that earlier, but it is something that, I don't know, I didn't expect to like that. I was very worried about it. I'm finding that to be like insanely refreshing, because there's a balance to it. I don't know, I think this is a different way than to do a full reboot for them to have done this. And you mentioned earlier how it gives something, great for the newer readers, but at the same time, there's that comfort that you were talking about earlier. I don't know. I really liked the way you presented that early on. I know you were going like sort of in a different direction with it, but I connected with what you were saying in a way I didn't respect it. You were kind of representing me at the same time with what you were saying. And I think you're right. And I think there's a number of ways to look at that. I don't know. This is just really, to me, a special book, and I'm glad we had a chance to revisit it.
Oh, yeah.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
And our next discussion will be on Batman number 5. The writer is Scott Snyder. Pencils by Greg Capullo. Inks by Jonathan Glapion. With colors by F.C.O. Assistant editor is Katie Kubert. Associate editor is Harvey Richards. Editor Mike Martz. With letterer Richard Starkings. And the covers by Capullo and F.C.O. With variant covers by Chris Burnham and Nathaniel Fairbanks. And of course, Batman was created by Bob Kane.
Nathan Fairbairn.
What did I say?
Nathaniel Fairbanks. Which I'm not entirely convinced I didn't just butcher that right now with what I just did, but you were like in another planet.
I was in another state. I was in Alaska right there. Fairbanks. So I've been watching a lot of Deadliest Catch. So
I'm in my correction. I probably butchered it too, so I won't throw you completely under the bus on that one. I like that Chris Burnham, though. That's the guy who's doing the artwork on Batman Inc. I really like his art style, so that alternate cover is really, really cool. This is a book, we talked about, as we've talked about the other Batman titles, do we have a favorite Batman book? How does that work? And we came to the conclusion that each week is just really great with the whole Bat family, including, each of the Batman books and all that. I'm going to go back and kind of correct myself, though. I kind of said, well, I kind of change every week. I am going to say this. There's one compliment I've got to give the Batman book. Every time I do the comparison, the first book I go to is Batman to compare the other title to. Like, this book has become my measuring stick of the Batman titles, which I think that says something special about this book. It's like I'm comparing this to Detective Comics. I'm comparing this to Batman and Robin. I'm comparing this to Dark Knight. This to Batman Inc. So I think when you're constantly going back to one title, this is for me, that says something about this book. This has become, for me, the flagship Bat book. That was right from the first issue of this. I'll go back and say I think this has been since his Detective Comics run. This guy has set the bar very, very high for me. And I think for me, that's one of the great things. I'm enjoying every week. I agree with everything we said about, I love Batman and Robin. So this isn't diminishing any of those titles. I'm trying to complement the quality of this book and the creative team working on it and his Detective Comics run. Scott Snyder's really just doing a terrific job. This guy is becoming also one of my favorite writers. Everything he does, Swamp Thing, I think is amazing. I'm really enjoying American Vampire. This is a guy who I will follow on a name basis now to other books that he does, whatever he does, just because of that. So he's an interesting. I want to see some of his short story work, or I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I've never read anything that he's done before he got on American Vampire. He's gotten to the point right now where I want to seek out for like one of my breaks or for summer or something like that, some of his other material to read it because I like him that much. So that says a lot about a creator and the quality of a title that it's making me do that. This book for me is, I think when you start measuring everything else against it, this becomes my favorite Batman book because it's just awesome. This Court of Owls stuff is wicked cool. This is making me feel how I did with R.I.P., where it's this mystery and the intrigue. I gave as a gift his Detective Comics run because I just knew a person reading this, and the person I gave it to is a friend of mine, you know our friend Bill. He doesn't read monthly comics. The only comics he reads anymore are the ones that I give him as gifts. He's a Batman fan. Has liked Batman since we were in high school together, going back to the 80s. But, he'll read stuff in trade, in hardcover, and things like that. And it's usually stuff that I buy him.
Yeah.
But that detective run, when I handed it to him, I said, this to me is up there with books like The Cult and Dark Knight Returns, Hush. This is essential reading. This Court of Owls is great because this is next year's gift. I mean, it really, and I'm not hesitating on that right now. This collected will be what I give him next year because it's great material. I mean, it's just really awesome. The mystery is great. The beats are great. Supporting cast is well handled. The entire Gotham team. And when I say the whole Gotham team, you've got Bullock, you've got Gordon, you've got, Batgirl making an appearance in this one. You've got Catwoman, Batwing and Alfred, all in like little panel shots. A Damian moment that Damian appears very little in this issue. But when he appears, it's such a heart-wrenching, emotional moment. You have these moments with Damian where it's like, wow, I love this kid. Yep. and Damian isn't really a quote-unquote star in this book, but I love that creatively all of the writers associated with the Bat universe, from Batgirl to Batwing to Nightwing to all the Batman titles to Catwoman, these books seem to really be reflecting what's going on in the whole Batman world. I think that's important.
Damian had a Fonzie moment for me. And by Fonzie moment, I don't mean he went around going, hey! I mean, he was supposed to be this small one-bit character that really just stole the show with his presence. And that's what happened with Fonzie as the character. He was just supposed to be really a throwaway, and the show was supposed to be about Richie and his family. Well, because of the character, because of Henry Winkler, he just really pulled that character out of nowhere. Damian's in 3 panels in this issue, and it really struck a chord. You got to see some great, hardcore moments. You got to see a little bit of a detective side of him. And then you got to see that personal side where he was this kid hurting, who wanted to find his father, who was missing his father, who was feeling, actual real emotional response. I loved it. It just, he was the one that really, it just kind of like, bam, I'm like, oh man, that is awesome. It was something that I loved, these opening sequences when they're talking about why they keep the signal going. Why are they running? He hasn't responded yet. Well, it's not just for us. We got to let the villains know that, hey, there's still this going on there, but it's for the people who know him. It's for the people who are hurting, the people who are worried, the people who are looking for him, the people who know him. And I love seeing it for the good guys. We got to give them something in the air as well. We got to keep hope up going. We got to keep hope alive for them. I love those moments. Those were some classic Jim Gordon moments, but you also see these great, just these great hero moments. And it was funny because when we were talking Batgirl before, we were talking about how I made this little mention about how I'd hate to be Alfred just because of all the pain he goes through and knowing what's going on. You see it right there. You see that concerned father look. You see that, I have no transmission detected, in the background. That look of fear, that look of worry, that concern, the pain in Alfred's eyes. I love that sequence. And these were after just the two quick boom, 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 little small panels of all these characters, and each one displayed so much emotion. I was just like, dang, this is awesome.
4 panels. That's my geek. That's my just to keep my geek cred.
He's in 4 panels?
Yeah, he's in 2 in the beginning, 2 in the end.
Hold on.
He's in 2 in the end, one where he's punching out the guy, then he's in the Batcave, and in the back he's in 2, one like a little more distant and one close up.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you 4.
Well, thanks. I'm really only doing that as a joke. I was actually looking while you were doing it because you said 3, and I'm like, I'm hoping it's more so I could just needle him. So I really was doing it just to be a putz. But these moments with Gordon and Bullock, and we talked about, I'm not a police officer, so anytime I make comments about that, understand that I'm just a civilian who, other than watching police TV shows and police dramas, and I know friends of mine, like my buddy Jim's worked as a correction officer, and I have another friend of mine who is a police officer. Passing conversations with them about their jobs is my exposure. I'm not an expert. I've never, other than those situations, I don't know a whole lot about the job. But one of my favorite series that was published by DC was Gotham Central. I love that type of police drama because it really shows, the effects. I think every job has its stresses. Every job has its things, that are positive and things that are its negatives. But it made me respect the danger that police officers put through and the effects that it has on their family life and things like that. And I know every city, every situation is different, and there's nothing cookie cutter about any police officer situation. But I think, nowadays, I really like to try and see things that I can respect about other people and what they do, to try and understand what they do, instead of making, negative generalizations, if that makes sense. I'm trying to be open-minded to other things. I love when, different literature and different media just kind of gives me a perspective on something that I don't do in a world that I don't explore. Jim Gordon has, to me, always been, I've looked up to him, and he makes me look up to police officers as a character throughout the years. As Batman's confidant. He's been the guy that Batman's gone to for his intelligence, for his ethics, for his not giving up. This guy's been shot like 7 billion times and been on his deathbed like 7 billion times. He's gone against metas. He's gone against the Joker. He's gone against Two-Face. He's gone against the craziest of crazies, and he keeps coming back because he wants to make Gotham a better place and he wants to protect its civilians. He also wants to be a leader of this police department that has often been portrayed as semi-corrupt, then very corrupt, then, and then he's got these cops that get behind him, and he's got this squad that he ends up building of people he can trust. I loved our Batgirl debate in the last sequence, and you and I both know we actually off the air in between these two segments started going back at it again because you know a lot more about police work than I do. Anything that I said in my comments back there that might have been ignorance towards police work is just that, ignorance towards police work, and I'll admit that fully. But I love that it makes me interested, makes me care, makes me respect what they do and the trauma that can be associated with it. And whether I fully understand that or not, I think it's a career that needs to be respected. Firemen, police, any of these careers where people are putting themselves in danger. Same thing with military. You and I have a lot of discussions on military, and your background in that is a lot richer than mine. But my respect level for people who are involved in the military, the people who are in the field, that are in the line of fire, stuff like that, is through the roof because those are experiences I haven't had. And I know that must be something for a lot of people that can be very traumatic. And there's the other side of it as well, too. I think there's a lot of bravery involved in any of those choices that I just mentioned. I love that when watching this sequence with Gordon and Bullock, that these guys are comrades in arms because of what they've been through. And I think this is something that happens a lot, in there. That's one of the reasons why I think I connected so much with what was going on with the detective in Batgirl. Not because I've had those experiences personally. It's because I've seen Gordon connect with other police officers. I've seen in Gotham Central the relationships that were portrayed there. So it gives me kind of a general understanding of how those relationships could be. It's definitely that general, and I'm making connections with things that I don't fully understand. But, this whole thing with Siggy the Bat Signal, this is Harvey Bullock's way of opening the conversation, recognizing that Batman's a friend of Gordon's. And whatever issues through the years Bullock has had with Batman, and however hard-edged Bullock can be, this is exactly what I've always loved about the portrayal of the character. You can portray Bullock that way, then give him these moments, and this is when he becomes endearing. They did this brilliantly in Gotham Central. It's brilliantly laid out here. I loved the Siggy the Bat Signal segment. It's a first page open. There was something endearing about it. And Siggy and Harvey are also MVPs in this issue for me, just for that sequence, because he was giving Gordon, who's my boy, a pat on the back in that sequence. I loved that. Very cool moments.
And plus, it was a nice tie-in to stuff they did earlier, a couple issues earlier, where Gordon, talked about how he uses the cigarette to try to get out of, the building when he's going to meet up with Batman, when he's going to use that. It's kind of like one of his excuses to get out, excuses to go up to the roof is he says he's having a smoke. Well, in reality, he's flipping the switch, or he's going to talk to Batman. He's going to do something like that. I like just that reference, and now it's more than just, a fake or a draw out, because you look on the shelf, you'll see a lot of, already smoked or partially smoked cigarettes up there. So he's probably been up there for a little while longer than normal, hoping that Batman shows up. Or he makes multiple trips just hoping that Bat shows up there. I'd like that connection, again, to something they did earlier.
I kind of like the level where I was looking at this, and he's taking care of Batman's family, too.
Yeah.
In his own way. This is his buddy's family. And I think that is something that in any career, in any job where this is your person, I think that's there's a certain code to that, and I think this is a male and female thing, where if something happens to your friend and, you don't know their situation, they're in the hospital, they're whatever, you try to look out for their family. I have coworkers who I'm very close with, I work with on a daily basis. If there's anything I can ever do for them, you naturally feel this need to step up and try to do that. I'm not saying that I'm always successful at it, but, it's one of those things you want to do that. And Gordon's in that moment, where he's trying to do something, and the frustrations there of knowing, there's only so much I can do here. His role here is to leave on this bat signal to try and comfort them. That's what he can do. And that frustration comes through on the page. You want to do more. You don't know what else to do. And I think that's real. That's very human.
And it's also a cop thing. That's, and when I say a cop thing, also a military type thing, firefighters will do this as well. It's, when you or you have a pretty good idea what that family is going through right now. The pain. It'll be a different circumstances, but you have a pretty good understanding. It's when, something that is beyond imaginable, beyond thought, beyond what could actually happen. You never let those thoughts enter your head. You never let the thoughts that someone's not going to come back. That's, one day you're going to get that call, at like 2 a.m. saying, hey, there's been a problem. You never let those thoughts enter your head, but once it's going on to somebody else, you know exactly what you have to do, and you do it. You don't call up and say, hey, anything I can do, let me know. No, you just do it. You just show up at the person's house because they're hurting. You sit there, you bring in, depending on who you are, maybe you bring in a little casserole so they don't have to do any cooking. You're sit there, you're fielding questions, you're blocking them off in case, like if, especially like big situations where a lot of media outlets, you'll see a lot of people start putting up kind of like a little wall of people where prevent the media from coming into their personal life, keep them blocked out. There's, these things that you just do without asking, hey, anything I can do, you just do it because the pain they're going through. You can, you never want to think it, but what's going to happen. It's always a possible risk. And that's part of the pain of being a family member of someone like this. That's part of the pain you go through. It's that anticipation. It's that dread. And
that's not exclusive to that. Because that's not exclusive to that. Because I really connected this in a different way. Very recently, there was somebody I work with whose mother was going through dementia. Okay? My grandma went through Alzheimer's. Now, they're two different things with a lot of connections. And I had a friend of mine whose mother was going through who's currently going through something that's borderline Alzheimer's. You connect with those things in the same way that they're connecting together. So I don't have the police experience, but through this sequence, I'm connecting with what it's like emotionally to see somebody and their family, because those are situations that I'm mentioning where it's very hard on the family to be witnessing those things and be a part of it. So I'm connecting with that on a different level. I'm not disputing anything you're saying. What I'm saying is that's not exclusive to that's not the only way you can connect with this, is if you're in one of those careers. I think in many ways, I think we should be more open-minded that there's so many things that people can go through in life where you don't understand it, and there's a support needed for family members. And I think this is connectable to so many different scenarios and situations, and I think it's more wide open than that. I think it's about really having empathy for everyone involved in a situation, and that any traumatic situation, no matter what it is, from health related to danger to whatever, that's going to have a ripple effect that affects so many people, friends, family, because there are friends, I mean, you're one of them for me, that are so close that you're family, if that makes sense. And, if you're going through something like, even this week when you and I were talking, you were talking about what was going on for you at work, I could connect with that. I'm not doing what you're doing job-wise. You know what I mean? But we all have those weeks where there's just things going on that add a little stress, they add trauma, sometimes a lot of stress, and they just kind of affect you elsewhere. And you have empathy. You want to help that person. You want to. This situation was something that I just connected with so deeply because it's well written, it's well presented. The artwork was laid out so well. Those panels, I thought, just really presented just different ways of looking at each character, and their personality really just came through in a very short stretch. I'm sorry, I cut you off there, but I mean...
And you know what, to be honest, I agree with you. Pain is universal, and unfortunately, we all do have that pain. There's going to be something, if you have no connection whatsoever with this life, that you can completely see what I'm talking about with pain. But there's an unspoken... there's an unspoken rule, there's an unspoken feeling, and it's with anybody whose life, their career, they're going to put their life on line. There's like those unspoken words you never say. You never do hey, if I don't come back. You don't say that because you're going to come back. You're going to be safe. When your family's sitting at home watching CNN and you're hearing news about people dying overseas, you're not thinking, hey, was that him? No, you're not thinking that. You think, oh, that poor family. Because you don't want to say, was that my loved one? And right there with this whole sequence with Gordon, you're confronted with that motion, confronted with that thing, that Batman, is he dead? No, he's not. This is, what we're doing. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it is easy to understand.
No, it's not. Because, and this is where I connect with that, and I do disagree with you immensely here. And first of all, everything you're saying, amen, it works. But taking your television analogy out there, when I see somebody dying from cancer on television, I don't want to say to myself that could be my mother, but I am thinking about, did my family watch this? And what are they thinking about as they're going through it? The Alzheimer's thing is another great example. When you hear about a celebrity getting that, and things take a negative turn or something like that, which that's the stuff that gets put out in the media, using your example, which I think is terrific. Your example's so amazing. You connect with that, and you worry about family members who are going through that. In my example that I mentioned, the cancer thing's a better example, because I'm going through a lot of that with my mom. She's been going through this for like 6 years, and every time something's coming on television, I'm worried, is she watching that? What's she thinking? Is my family watching that? What are they thinking? Are friends of my mother watching that? What are they thinking? It's not the same thing, but the emotion's the same. The connections are the same. I think that these things are more connectable in these careers, and I think a lot of times we try to exclude that, and we don't have enough empathy for these jobs that you're mentioning. And I think we all can connect with what these people go through. The emotion. I'm not saying in the sense that we've done it, we've had these experiences, but we've experienced those emotions through our life, if that makes sense. I'm not saying they're exactly the same. I'm saying, though, that they're that type of deep-rooted trauma. where you feel that and your empathy's there, and there's things that are unspoken because you can't speak them out because you're afraid of bringing that negativity on it, if that makes sense. Because there's certain things, a great example. My mom's a great example of that. I can't say certain things to her. They have to be unspoken because of what she's going through. So I get that. You know what I mean? It's not the same. I haven't experienced what these people have, but I get that thought process. I get the feeling behind it. It's different. It's coming from a different place. But then that connection makes me respect them more in the way that you're talking about. Exactly what you're going for here. So everything you're saying, I'm loving. I think you're spot on with everything you're saying, but I think there's more connectability than you're presenting here that is out there to what they're going through. And I think that connectability is important because if you're going to respect something, you have to understand it in a way that works for your world.
And to be honest with you, until you said the whole cancer reference with your mom, I didn't think there would be a way I could, make you connect, make you understand. But that's exactly what I was talking about. It's that same type of that dread, that anticipation, that fear. And I never even dawned on me that you would have that type of connection. So, you are correct on it. There is a connectability to the pain. There is a way to, for others to understand it. Unfortunately, other people can feel this pain. It's, pain, emotion, how you react to it, how you deal with it. Do you tuck up in the fetal position and suck your thumb and say, make it go away? Do you rage against it? Do you fight it? Do you try to stand strong? Are you, there's so many different things how people can react to it. And it was funny because in that panel, you do see a lot of the different reactions to it, throughout the different heroes. You see, Damian in one panel sitting there, kind of beating up some bad guys. You kind of have a little bit of dread and concern on the eyes of Batgirl. Same thing with the unknown qualities going on in Catwoman. Alfred, as I said before, had that. It was, to me, I saw like a combination of pain, worry, suffering, just that whole emotional gambit on what's going on. Where is his son? So there was, you see that connection throughout them. So it's, pain is universal throughout us all.
Well, and the examples we presented are just a few of literally thousands of them that are out there. There's people listening to this that connected in a different way. One of the things I really liked about the portrayals, and I love the way you're presenting the panels, is each of these characters were presented in a unique way. There was nothing cookie cutter about their worry, their personality, their mood, what they were seeing, what they were connecting to. I don't know, there was something I really enjoyed about their personality being presented in those issues as well. And I wasn't disputing anything you were saying as far as how you're presenting it, because I thought you presented everything you were saying very well. The only part that I was disputing is I do think that there's more connectability. And I think as a society nowadays, we have to try and have more empathy for each other. Even in situations where we don't 100% understand it because we're not a part of it, I think that we've been through things that are more connectable than any of us realize. And it's something I'm trying to do more. And I'm not a police officer. I'm not a military person. I'm not a fireman. I've never been through those things. But I've been through pain, and I can respect more what they go through if I can try to connect with it in some way. Not that it's the same, and I'm not trying to present that at all. It's very different, of course, but if anything, I think I have more empathy, more respect because of the fact that I'm trying to connect that than I did before, because I at least try to understand it to a certain extent, at least however I'm able to. This is great writing. I think when you present these characters in this way, these are why these two issues of Batman and Batgirl I wanted to talk about so much, because I had deep emotional connections. It wasn't just reading the issue. I didn't just walk away from them afterwards. These are characters that gave me emotional resonance. And this is what a comic book can do when it's well written, when it's well drawn, when it's laid out in this cinematic style. These characters come to life, as they should. And why are these books two of my absolute favorites right now? Because of this. Because I'm chomping at the bit, practically ripping out the microphone to share some of these feelings and moods. This labyrinth thing that he got put in is, to me, just brilliant. Because, again, one of Batman's strengths, and one of the things that I've always loved about him, is he's the detective. And if Batman's one of those guys you can play as the superhero, where he goes in with the adventure, the action, the fighting, and all that stuff, the jet setting, the traveling around the world. All of those are really cool things to incorporate into Batman. I adore that side of him. But then you can also get into the very cerebral side of him, the strategist side of him, the detective, the guy who is trying to figure out and stay one step ahead mentally. Because that's his strength. That's his quote-unquote superpower. That's what he brings to the table that the other heroes don't. You know, I mean, not saying that they don't, but not to the same level that he does. He's had to hone himself in this way to compensate. We'll talk about Green Arrow later, where he's compensating in a different way, you know, which in a very, very good way. But this is something that I've always loved about Batman, and I found very cool about the character in the best writing. You know, he comes back to this pond with the owl, and he knows he shouldn't drink it.
Yeah.
You know, the question comes back, is that even there? I do think the water's there, I think, to a certain extent. But, you know, is that thing even the size that it's being presented to be? You know, I think the lights are there and everything, but is it larger than life because of what's already been done mentally to him? What was he injected with that put him in that presence? You know what I mean? Like, when he was put in that labyrinth, what had already happened to him beforehand? What's running through his veins? He's aware that he's being drugged.
Yeah.
You know, here's the question. Is he even awake?
I think he's awake. I don't think the labyrinth is as big as it appears in his mind and appears to us. I think the labyrinth is probably a lot smaller. And he keeps coming back to that same room because I think he walks the entire length of what is really there, and he comes back and he's saying, wow, I've been gone. Like, no, it's not this massive labyrinth. You know, it's really a small area is how I'm thinking. And I don't think the owl probably is as big as he thinks it is. You know, it's a combination drugs, the lighting, everything that he's gone through. I think when everything is said and done, and we get him thinking clearer, you know, because you know he's going to recover from this, but how he gets there is going to be the cool story. You know, when he does recover, I think this whole labyrinth is going to look completely different than what it looks right now.
Now, the Court of Owls, the 6 people that we've seen in previous issues that are there, are they really there at that moment? Is that an image that he's seeing? Are they watching him? Or is that his own mind playing with him? Because what he's seeing is what we've seen in issues of the Court of Owls.
Right.
But he hasn't actually seen them, right?
He's only seen pictures of them.
Okay. So is that his mind playing tricks on him, or are they actually there? And I don't know that I'm looking for a set answer on this. Maybe you have one. But I think it's one of the things that I was playing through on this. I felt like I was, again, one of the things I loved about R.I.P. was feeling like as Batman was going through the struggle, I was going through the struggle with him. The beauty of it was, as he was questioning himself, the way that the pacing was done in this, with the great layouts of zooming in, zooming out, his inner dialogue, and then seeing, you know, him talk these things out loud, I felt like I was doing the same thing with him. Not because the dialogue forced me there, because the dialogue naturally flowed in the way the scene did to those sequences. I really appreciated the pacing. But how much of what's going on with him is real, and how much of it is his mind? Do you have any idea on that, or is that part of what your journey's like as well?
Well, I'm thinking the only other living person in there with him is Talon. I think anybody else is just creations of his mind, or illusions of, you know, shadowing, or maybe little mannequins that, you know, they do a semi-dummy mannequin that they shift out of the way. I think him and Talon are the only two that are actually in there, you know, dealing with this matter. And I think that's part of the reason why I think it is so small. I think it is just a single large room, and he's able to manipulate around him. Now,
here's what I'm wondering. That sequence where he sees the open coffin.
Yeah.
The one that's left open. What did that mean to you? Is that Talon that he's dealing with? What was that coffin supposed to... Because the picture there, is that meant to be the child? Like, are these the dead previous assassins? Is that how you took that, because of the Talon on the wall? These are the agents that are no longer with them? That from birth... because he said the generations of children you turned into monsters. Is that it? Young men and women you trained for years? Is this letting us see just how many generations and how many years the Talons have been around? That maybe all along, young Bruce was right in trying to find? Like, is Batman fighting logically against what Bruce Wayne knew as a little kid? That Bruce Wayne was right to be hunting down the Court of Owls. They really existed. And this is verification of generations and generations of this group. Is that the point of that sequence? Or are you reading that differently than I am?
No, I was pretty much reading it as you did, where these are the coffins of, or the representations of the every talent, every member of the court, the different, assassins that they've had over the years. And this is just to show him just how massive they are, how long they've been around. That, this goes even before Bruce was a child. This goes back to the ancient days of Gotham, the very foundation of the city. The Court of Owls have been there, and they're like, see, this is how long we've been here. You think Gotham's your city? No, Gotham's our city. And this is kind of one of those big dramatic statements of it, saying, we know we're going to continue, and that's why they have the one empty coffin for the current talent. He knows eventually he's going to die. He'll be in there. The next talent will come. The next talent will emerge. The next one will continue on, and the court will always be there. It's part of that whole breaking you mentally, breaking him physically. Nothing you can do will matter. We will always be here. We run Gotham, not you. It's all part of that same just beatdown that they're trying to do to Bruce. And I love the fact that he even acknowledged that that's why they didn't take off his mask. Because they don't really see him as a threat because they've been around so long. They are, so much encompassed in Gotham that, Batman's just a flash in the pan to them. After Batman's gone, the court will still be here. The court will still be as strong as ever. And I love the fact that Bruce is seeing that's the kind of mind games they're playing. Now, whether that was their intentional mind game or whether Bruce is completely making that up, I don't know. But I love that line of thought.
But in my mind, that's starting to backfire against them. They're underestimating him. Because I think a lot of what we're seeing here is not only Batman dealing with everything you're saying, amen, they're putting him through all this, but what we're also seeing is his subconscious, him wrestling with that as he is sorting through the clues. He is starting to put things together. He is starting to take clues from his past, present, and kind of fight against the inconsistencies between them. It's like him in this drugged state or whatever, working through it. You know what I mean? There's an intelligence to what he's doing as well. This not listening, not listening, not listening. Well, why is he fighting that so strongly? That's because his mind, and because he's saying, stop it, Bruce, which means there is a subconscious part of him that's trying to trigger reality of the situation, which then that reality is going to eventually bring coherence to what's going on here. Now, how soon that's going to be for him and what he's going to have to go through to reach the final end game of that, is he going to be able to do that on his own, or is, he going to be broken down and then have to work his way through that and ask for help? I don't know what that's going to look like or what that journey is going to be for him, but I'm loving that I'm seeing two sides of him, a duality of him combating each other in this sequence to try and rationalize this. It's very cool because I think there's a reality to that.
Yeah, and it was funny because as this issue's going on and you have to invert the book, I love the fact that they gave you that physical visual means that you actually had to physically turn your book as his life is getting turned upside down.
Right.
For me, that was just a great, that was just something I'd never thought anyone would do, and I never thought of that. I'm like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah, it's very well presented that way in order for him to do that. And I love that, as it's going on, this is just an old bedtime story. Logically, he won't let himself see that. And, that this has been going on under his nose all these years, under Gotham's nose all these years. His need for Gotham to be his city. And to find out that these people have been manipulating Gotham, this becomes then very quickly, when he finally discovers this and finally relates to this, the battle for Gotham. Because he really has to make Gotham his city here. You know what I mean? It's the court.
Yeah.
He's got to take it back from the Court of Owls because what he's doing both in and out of the mask is going to be something the Court of Owls are not going to stand for. This resurrection of Gotham that he's doing, that we see like in Batgirl and the other books, that he's trying to bring Gotham back, the Court of Owls isn't going to like that because it's something they're not controlling. He's controlling. It's giving him more dominance over the city, which I'm guessing they like things the way they are because it gives them this underground to control, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're seeing this right.
I mean, I just love that whole sequence. Then with Thomas and Martha Wayne, and again, I think for him, that's been the source of comfort, his vision of them. It's kind of questioning, what did you guys really know about Gotham and what was going on there? You know what I mean? In that moment, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they're old people now. They've been down there the entire time. They didn't actually die. They're there, and they aged them. And again, that was just a really cool. I don't know if that was Bruce's defenses trying to fight back, and then whatever drugs are, he creates this peaceful image, and then the drugs kind of, work at it and twist it against him, or if the whole thing is, the sequence between them has been, I've thought the most about. I can't figure out if that's Bruce's mind trying to build something, a safety net for himself, or if that is just the continuation of the Court of Owls.
They're the link to everything he knows about Gotham. They're the link to his picture of what Gotham should be. Because if you look back in his childhood and his belief in the direction for Gotham, a lot of that was motivated by his parents. I think it was something Batman Begins laid out really well. With the dad when he was showing like his vision for the city and the direction for it and things like that. I think for him, when he sees that family, that's like, this is another thing that's been violated from him by the Court of Owls. Like, his belief in what Gotham was. If he has to believe in the Court of Owls, then he has to believe that the Court of Owls took away his parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that was, remember, his investigation as a child was that they took them away. So now this is them being captured like he thought as a child and taken away by the Court of Owls. That is coming to life in this nightmare of his. That they've even been violated here. Because remember, that was the investigation. He wanted to see, did the Court of Owls pull that? Now, I don't know if the Court of Owls had anything to do with the death of his parents, or if that nursery rhyme story led him to believe that there was something more. Because as a child, you're going to want to believe that that death was important. You know what I mean? Yeah. There was something more to it, that there was some plot afoot. But that is his subconscious mind saying, look, all along the plot was here. They captured us. Look what they did to us. They took us away from you. And, this has been violated now by them turning into owls. I don't know. To me, I read that totally as his subconscious mind going back to the childhood, his fears. I love that it goes back to, again, his disturbed childhood fears. Any kid that would see what he saw, the horror of that, that's something that in their darkest moment they would go back to. It's funny how writers find creative new ways to use that moment from Bruce, because this, I think, is a creative new way to use something that we know is an issue for him and a trauma.
Yeah. Now, here's my question. Do you think, because the parents morph into those owls that kind of rip them apart, do you think that there were actually living owls down there, or was that just his mind ripping himself apart, or was that maybe Talon, slice and dicing him without being seen?
Yes and no. I don't know. I went through the same thought process that you did. I'm still going through the same process that you are. What he's going through there in this sequence of events, because you got to question yourself, did he really get run through? How much?
I think it is yes.
Well, I don't know. What are they doing to him? I'm going to be curious to see what happens in that sequence of events, because it says the next issue is the court.
Right.
And we'll go back. Obviously, there's other things we can still talk about. Are they putting him on trial? Are they going to, what is, we don't know yet what the court's goal is with him. Is it to kill him and just put him out of the way? Or is there something more afoot there? I don't know.
Well,
because for somebody not important, this is a pretty big deal.
Right.
And I think there's more to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know the court just doesn't want to kill him and get him out of the way. They have to destroy him. You think about what the court did to Bruce's grandfather.
Right.
Made everyone think he was insane, and just all that completely discredit him. Everybody thought he was just some crazy senile old man. Well, they need to do that with Batman. They need to destroy Batman, have Batman be this babbling idiot. And I'm personally thinking that the court isn't going to be something private. The court is going to be something public, like drop this defeated, crazy, messed up Batman in the middle of Gotham and showing, see, this is your hero. Just really mess him up, really publicly just lay him out there as if he's completely beaten and destroyed.
While keeping
the court
themselves
of public appearance.
Yeah, while keeping themselves under the radar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know what their goal is. I agree with you. There's a connection to what they did to Alan Wayne, and it's going to be something like that. I think it's why we saw Bruce pull out the bones and experiment, and try to do the forensic study and try to discover what really was happening there. Are those really his bones and what really happened there? I don't know. I think that those were things. Those weren't throwaways. They were definitely there for a purpose. I think there's been clues laid out all along with all of this. I don't know this, and I love that at the end, the ending sequence where the The bat signal does exactly what Bullock said it was going to do. And like you said, I can't really talk any further about what you said earlier about the Damian sequence. Amen. Right down to actually, there's 5 panels where Damian is, because next to Court, he's also featured there.
That's not a panel.
That is sure. What do you call that?
That's a preview or a coming attraction. That's not a quote-unquote panel.
Is he in it? Is there artwork there?
We can't be 100% certain that that's Damian.
Who do you think that guy is next to him?
That could be Bullock, okay?
Bullock wearing yellow cape and stuff like that? Yeah. Well,
maybe he's feeling a little springy, and he wants to pull out his spring line, instead of the traditional tan jacket. And he's like, hey, I'm going to change things up a little bit. That could just be a little kid that Gordon happens to be standing next to.
Jim Gordon.
That could be a lot of different people.
You're right, because usually on the roof they've got other little kids up there. You never know, because the daycare that's up there as well. And use for your Bullock example, his hat does fall off when Damian walks past him. So you're right, it could be Bullock as well. So I stand corrected.
Thank you.
What a terrific title. And one of the things I will applaud all of the Batman titles with, before we end this segment, is I love that the way that they're being presented and the tone of the storytelling that's going on in these books is very different. This is a very cerebral, detective-laced, deep-rooted, long-form story that's going on here. And I like that the other books each have their own pacing and style, yet they feel like it's the same Batman that's being presented here. I think that's a nice balance. And it's something that I'm hoping they just keep continuing, because I think that these creators are doing a really great job of keeping themes and tones in place. I'm so Batman happy right now that I just, not just from this book, it's from the whole line. But I will say, I'm pretty darn convinced this is my favorite book right now of the Batman books. This is really a home run.
It's tough. It's a tough call, man, because for a while there I would hold on to say, no, it's Batman and Robin, because I do love some cool Damian stuff. And then, then I'm like this. Though, as I said, Damian had his Fonzie moment where he just, boom, and stole the show. But this has just been an absolutely fabulous story.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to pick another story over it. And so right now I got to put it on the Batman, but when we talk Batman and Robin,
sure,
that one's going to have, some defense. And when we talk detective, I'll be like, you got to see this is some really good classic Batman, wonderful stories. So, I'm going to lean towards everyone's in front of me.
I want to talk detective again, just for a lot of the reasons you're saying. But I think for me, this edges over those only because I use it as the measuring stick, and that's not forced. This book makes me do it. So
yeah, this one does step up to the line and just throws down. There is a lot of comparison coming back to this, and this Bruce. You're comparing to this Bruce and seeing, okay, this is the guy. How is he like this? What is this the same guy I'm seeing in the other book? So by using this as a measuring stick, I can see you could very easily say that this is the top one, but it is still tough to do. It is still tough to pick a favorite number one Bat title.
It's a good problem.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great problem to have.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Jim, our next review is going to be of Green Arrow number 5. Keith Giffen, writer, co-plotter. Dan Jurgens, layouts and co-plotter. Ray McCarthy, finishes. Tanya and Richard Horry are colorists. Rob Lay is the letterer. Sean Makowitz is the assistant editor. Pat McCallum is the editor. Cover by Jason Fabok, Ryan Wynn, and Alan Pasalacqua. And apologies for any name butchering there all along. This has been an interesting title because Green Arrow has gone through, I think, it's been some major status quo changes because of the fact that we've made him younger and more current in the sense of what Queen Industries, Q, Core, all this stuff has gone through in the New 52 transition. It's become more modern, more like Apple, more like, a lot of the tech companies we see. And I really like that. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this because, you're taking me, since I was a little kid, I've loved Green Arrow. I loved the beard. I loved the whole look. I had the Mego figure and stuff like that. Green Arrow is a very important character to me. So now you've taken that all away. We've gone a little bit more Smallville with his look. which I don't mind. I liked Smallville a lot in his presentation. But what I like is they didn't stick to just that. They kind of did a hybrid of the classic Green Arrow, the Smallville Green Arrow, and then teched him up a little bit in a way that you can understand how this guy can stand toe-to-toe with metahumans. And it's in a way where he's not like Batman. He's got a team, he's got a team of people who are helping him, with the sense with analysis and suggestions, but then yet he's still that kind of brash Ollie who makes his own path and makes his own decisions. He can be stubborn at times, and that's something I like about it. And yet he is somebody who, has strong values where he believes in certain things and he will stick to them. And I don't know, I really am enjoying this presentation of Green Arrow. I think it's getting better as it goes along, if that makes sense. Like, this issue for me, I don't know if your journey's been the same with me. I've been enjoying it all along, but I felt like each issue, I had to get a handle on Ollie. Like in the sense of how does he connect with the Ollie I know? And I think I'm starting to stop doing that and more really enjoy a modern presentation of Green Arrow instead of trying to connect him so hard with the past. I think that's been my roadblock with him, is I'm trying too hard to make him the previous Green Arrow instead of looking at, okay, at the core, you're getting to the ideas that I think are important for Green Arrow. This issue, for some reason, really hit that for me. This is the one where I'm like, wow, I'm really glad that we're talking about this one now in this presentation, because this was, I thought, very, very well done as an issue, and I really felt very Green Arrow to me. And it's one of the first times where I solidly feel that. And I'm not knocking the book. I think I'm holding on to going back to pre-Longbow Hunters as a kid, reading him in the Justice League straight on through, and following him for years like that. I don't know, I guess, the one that eventually got married and did all that other stuff. I don't know. It's just, for me, that's kind of my... What's been your scenario, though? Because we talked on the show for years where you were, a Team Green guy and all that stuff. So where are you at with Green Arrow now? How does this book fall for you?
I liked, previous Green Arrow runs I read. I really enjoyed the character. And as you said, I was a Team Green. I am so much loving this over the previous stuff that this is probably one of the characters that I really am glad they did this and they changed it around. Because the one thing that always... The personal flaws of Ollie in the past, were cool character moments, were cool plot story, and just seeing Ollie making the wrong choices, and and sometimes you sit there saying, Ollie, what the heck are you doing? That character, it was cool, but there was always something that just that wasn't the type of hero I liked. I liked the Superman. I liked it, kind of, cleaner, crisper, clearer hero that's, definitely going down the path. This Ollie, to me, seems to be more of that cleaner, crisper hero. Things aren't perfect for him. He does have to deal with the real world, but he's not so much of a jerk. And those times when the other Ollie, the previous iterations that I read, I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. I get angry with him for how he treated Dinah, how he treated, his family, his supporting cast, the stupid mistakes he made. This hero, because we're catching at the younger point where he's going to make the mistakes, but it never seems like the mistakes he makes are going to be based out of selfishness. Whereas the previous Ollie, I saw a lot of that selfishness come through, and it's a human, it's a natural reaction. Yeah. So that made him a different type of hero. So I enjoyed those stories, but this is the kind of hero that I connect more to. This is the kind of hero that I like reading and I enjoy seeing. So he's got a team concept going on. He's got some personal issues that he's trying to deal with, balancing the hero and balancing his real world personas, and things just conflicting and contradicting and bashing into each other head on. There's some cool potential Ollie Queen stories down the line. We got some cool Green Arrow stories. We got some cool villains popping up. I'm really happy with who this Green Arrow is. I'm really happy where this is going.
I think this is where our experience reading Green Arrow is very different, because you read him for a more limited time than I did. It's funny, at the core, it's a lot more like the Green Arrow I grew up with. where he's the adventurer and he does these missions and things, and he looks like this selfish guy because of the fact that he's got to run off in the middle of a fight as Green Arrow instead of saving the damsel in distress. You know what I mean? Ollie Queen runs away, and Ollie looks like this selfish person and things like that. And then his role at Green Arrow a lot of times puts him at odds with his friends because he puts that and what he feels is the right thing to do. Like he's got this team that he's working with, but he overrides them many times because he knows better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I like about it, I think it got to the point with Ollie, he'd made so many mistakes that was happening almost too much with him. And now we're seeing, I think, a greater balance of the hero in this guy. I think we were getting back to that when J.T. Crew was working with him, like in Brightest Day. You know what I'm talking about, in the forest and stuff like that? We started getting back to that. And it is funny how, like, this guy, in many ways, I'm like, okay, this is, I think, where that was going, in the sense of this type of character. I really am liking this guy because we're getting back to, and we're saying a lot of the same things here, to the heroic roots of the character. He feels like a hero. I'm really enjoying seeing him try to come up with different ways to deal with situations. I love the happy accidents with Arrows sometimes where it's a split-second decision, and he's got to react. You don't know who the villain is. He's relying on intel, but there is no intel on this guy. He's got a Swamp Thing-like background, not quite as good at Holland. I love the dialogue in this issue. It was bringing in DC's rich history. The Alec Holland story would be something in the scientific community they would know about, and they would naturally compare what happened in those two situations because they are related. They're, similar. But, it's not as brilliant as Holland and how this all played out. But also, this is the Beast who's got the love interest. And this love interest means so much to him because she, in many ways, is the female who's acknowledging him in this form, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I think he, deep down at his core, he knows he doesn't have a chance with her, but yet there's that part of him, because of their relationship, that thinks, maybe, what if I can convince her? I don't know, it's something, I think we all connect with that because we've all been in that situation before too, if that makes sense. That's one of the things about these beasts. Times where we've all had that girl where we're like, well, maybe she'll like me, even though that's just, it's not happening. There is no connection there and that type of thing. We've all been there before. So there's elements in this issue in particular that I just think had all the right beats. And I'm really digging this book. I think I was, for so long, it was funny how the beard thing, I think the beard thing was a brain freeze for me. In the same way that Superman's costume changed, because since the 70s, I've been following this guy with this crazy beard. Yeah. And, there's certain core things. And growing up as a kid, having that action figure for so many years, I don't think I was letting myself see that this is good Green Arrow. I do think it's a testament to this issue, though, that there's something that happened in this issue, the adventure story that happens here. I think this is where it just finally came together for me. I'm like, wow, this is really good Green Arrow. It's captured those core things that I really liked about him in Smallville in his appearances, but also the things that I've always liked about Green Arrow in general. And I think one of the reasons why I liked his portrayal in Smallville was because at his core, that Ollie had vulnerabilities and weaknesses too, but he also had those cool moments where he would pull out that bow and arrow, and you're just like, man, it's cool to be Green Arrow, Yeah. Justin Hartley, I think, pulled that off well. I thought the writing in Smallville pulled that off well in so many sequences where you'd see him in there. You know what I'd love? Like, there's that sequence where he's wearing that hood, and the girl, he's obviously got these feelings for, where he would never hurt her feelings, that type of thing. Adrian, where he signed the power or the veto ability that she would have because he wouldn't hurt her feelings. Just showing that he's really a good guy at heart. But in that moment where he comes back as Green Arrow, when is she going to discover that he's Green Arrow? Do you know what I mean? Because voice thing and all that, she knows him. It's something I think in the Green Lantern movie they portrayed well. Hal?
Yeah, she knew immediately that it was Hal.
Yeah.
And when will she figure it out? Because right now she's thinking, Ollie left me. That coward just ran and left me, and then Green Arrow comes in and saves the day. I'm waiting for next issue. There's going to be that there's going to be that discussion, or there's going to be just that look that she's going to give him. That's, kind of that, how could you do that to me? How could you just abandon me like that with that monster?
Yeah.
I love that kind of moments, and I love just the anticipation of the human contact, the human story, the personal Ali Queen struggle that he's going to have to go through, because it's coming. Until she figures it out, he's always going to have those moments. And then even just thinking even further down the line, because eventually if she figures it out, she'll have all those moments, because there's going to be more moments like that where she's going to go, wait a minute. Ali wasn't abandoning me. He was protecting me. He just couldn't do it as Ali Queen. He had to change. So you have those realization moments. And just there's so much I'm looking forward to, so much. But it's not even like an anticipation of enjoyment. I'm currently loving what I'm reading, but I know coming down the pipeline, there's some more cool stuff coming. So I'm excited about it. And I'm thrilled. I'm going, yes, this is neat. This is a kind of a hero I enjoy.
Yeah, the costume's really grown on me, too. I like the bow that will retract. Mm-hmm. Making for portability and stuff like that. Because I always like that about Iron Man. The fact that this is a businessman who you can believe that stuff will fit into a duffel or a briefcase or something like that would be normal for his job. And I think that's really important when you're dealing with a corporate hero like that. Is how is he getting this costume from place to place without anyone realizing, and how does it actually fit into that case? I think there's something about the design of it that it looks like something that could actually fit into a case that size, if I'm making sense there. That's how he's pulling a lot of this off. I love the G on the belt. I love the trick arrows, the way that they're being done, that they're, there's nothing silly about them, if that makes sense. They're functional. Because as a kid growing up, you didn't think the trick arrows were silly. You thought they were functional.
Yeah.
They just, as times changed and he needed to progress, I think they moved away from trick arrows to kind of get to a more serious tone with him. But as a kid, when he pulled out that boxing glove arrow, I wasn't thinking silly. I was thinking, that's cool.
Cool, yeah.
And I'm back to thinking, that's cool with his arrows when he's doing them. I love the mistakes he makes where like he will use and try certain arrows and find out ones that, have a toxic element to them, are actually only enhancing this guy instead of doing what he wants
you
it to
just
do.
strengthened him. Yeah. Big mistake.
But the dialogue between him and his team with the humorous banter is something that I think sets this apart from like a Batman, for example. You see a lot of Ollie's personality. I think that's why this issue stands out for me, too, for some reason. Care to explain walking toxic waste dump comment? And then, all these things back and forth. And the you think?
Yeah.
It's the dialogue is just really, really solid. The way that he connects it to the lady gunslinger from the previous night, really realizing what this guy's issue is with him, and that there's a deep connection to both Ollie Queen, to Green Arrow, and then to, everything that's heading in these directions. I don't know. It was something I really enjoyed in this issue. Everything had a logical flow to it, but there was a lot of adventure. And I like that this has a different tone than some of the other books that I'm reading. Adventure is really important to me. I like superhero adventure stories. You hit on that, I think, the nail on the head before. This feels like a cool superhero book.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of dun 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 kind of going through my head. It's just that nonstop. It's the scramble fighting style where he doesn't know exactly. Okay, let me try this. Let me try this. It's the bob and weave. It's that Jackie Chan fight sequence where he's going to throw everything he can at you, including the kitchen sink, to survive. And that is, again, when you have a non-meta powered hero, you gotta believe that he does this type of stuff. The past issues that we had him, dealing with that whole online group that were this showing online the death of Green Arrow, and they're trying to do that. And I just loved how that was going out, how that was playing out, and how he just kept, improvise, adapt, overcome, scramble, stick and move. It's again a very realistic belief that someone with these skills could actually pull this stuff off. And one of the things that's weird, with costume design and changes, the one thing I'm really liking on his costume, as well as other heroes, are knee pads. It's something as simple as just the accent the boot up a little bit so it's covering over his knees, because I I used to rollerblade, or I tried to, as I called it, just creative falling, because I kept falling constantly, and I lacked the balance to do it. But I really got to appreciate the rollerblade knee pads, where your full force is hitting the ground, hitting a concrete slab, and nothing happens to you. And you're like, wow, that actually felt pretty good. Okay, cool. And seeing these heroes have this type of stuff, I like seeing that, because, again, there's a lot of times when they're jumping, sliding, bobbing, weaving, doing the different stuff that if they didn't have that, they'd shatter their kneecaps, they'd shatter their legs. We're seeing protection on stuff that should normally break. Well, here's why it doesn't break.
What are you taking as knee pads for him, though? Are you taking the metal ring around his knee as the knee pad?
Oh, yeah.
Because his knee actually does come through the boot. If you take a look at, like, the issue where it's the full page with, he's shoved the arrow through his mouth, and you see the actual arrow kick off. You get a really good shot of the boot there.
Yeah.
And if you take a look, there's a big opening right where the knee is.
But I'm taking it that metal ring around the outside is what he would actually land on.
That's what I'm asking. No, so I'm not disputing you. I'm asking where you're, because I'm not looking at a tradition. I guess to me a traditional knee pad fully covers the knee. So I'm genuinely asking what you're talking about as a knee pad, just because I want to understand your line of thinking.
Part of the cool thing on the rollerblading knee pads aren't that it's just a solid plastic cover, that there is a cushion area to comfort and cushion the shock that's on the knee. And you can kind of see the elastic stuff that goes around it. Now, you do need a hard surface.
What elastic are you seeing?
Okay. Let's see, where's a good screen? If you go actually back to the very beginning, where the creative team, where he's jumping through the window.
Okay.
I'm taking it that's kind of like an elastic band that's keeping it. You can see.
Because that looks like the same material as the boot.
Well, we got the metal ring that's the outside. Then right in that middle, that strip that goes across there.
Okay.
That's what I'm taking is the elastic cushioning.
Okay. You're talking about, you don't think that the knee goes straight on through. You're thinking that, like,
I think that will
blackish
cushion it and stop it. Right. That will cushion and stop it from going all the way through, where the impact is then the force of the impact is absorbed by that green ringish type that goes around the knee.
This is a very geeky discussion.
I know.
No, I like it though. I mean, because here's the funny part. None of this I'm genuinely, like, as you were saying that, I'm like, oh, I'm really curious about this now. So this is a great comic book discussion, because we're debating the metal cushioning on the boot of Green Arrow's knee.
Okay,
And I'm glued to this. I'm interested. This is funny stuff. What a great title, though. I mean, it's funny. This for me, I will say, this is the issue for whatever reason that this book finally clicked for me. I've been enjoying Green Arrow. It hasn't clicked for me yet. One of the things I will applaud all the creative teams associated with this book so far, because the writing shift has happened. I really love that this does not feel like a different character with the creative shift, because we've got a fill-in writing team for right now until who's been associated with the character. Dan Jurgens was on the book already, but J.T. Cruel was writing this in the beginning, and this feels like the same guy all the way through. And I know we got, Ann Nocenti, and I'm probably butchering her last name, and I apologize, but I loved her on Daredevil coming on the book. And I really love that this feels like the same guy. There's a consistency there, so I applaud that flow, because I think it's just been a gradual build for me to understanding this character and that he is Green Arrow, if that makes sense. And now that I've clicked with that, I think this issue was the one, just for whatever reason, it all came together. So I'm not knocking anything that came before, but there was something special about this issue. I don't know if it was just little bits and pieces of everything beforehand that finally led me here, but this was the one for me where I'm like, I think I'm in more in the place where you're at now, because Green Arrow is a very important character to me. On the show, we've talked about the character. I haven't really talked about my history with him, but as a kid, I always loved, like, Green Arrow. One of the cool things about Green Arrow, very similar to Batman, you could be Green Arrow. We were in Indian guides as kids, shot bow and arrows and stuff like that. So when you're doing that, for a superhero fan, I'm shooting bow and arrows thinking, hey, I'm Green Arrow.
Yeah.
I was into, but I was also, as a kid growing up, Robin Hood was on TV. I'm a big Robin Hood fan. I've always loved that character. When they've done films of Robin Hood since then, I see all of them. I like that character. So Green Arrow, Robin Hood, that whole vibe for me is something that's really important. And this character now, I'm finally getting on this issue. I loved what happened with the character, how it wound up being that trick arrow that he just ended up trying as a last-ditch effort. And the knock on the bolo arrow and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bolo arrow. Now, do you think Ali really thought it was a bolo arrow? Or is that tongue-in-cheek humor from him? Because I saw that two ways, too.
I took it actually as Ali was desperate and he grabbed the thing and thrusted it up there, and it turned out to be the Banshee arrow. I don't completely think that Ali was planning that. He was just looking to try to buy him some time, get away from the thing, so he figured shoving an arrow up his cheek into his head would do some damage to him, would buy him some time. He probably figured it wouldn't kill the guy, but it would give him a chance to get away. That was a scramble move. I need to get out of here now. And it turned out to win.
Now tell me, this isn't a guy that would argue with Flash and would argue with Hawkman.
Oh yeah, he'd throw down with him. He'd talk. He's not going to back down. He's not going to just cower away or This is a definite. I'm kind of curious to see where politically where he's leaning. I want to know more about Ali Queen as a person. I'd love to see him interacting with other heroes and just seeing how he deals with the Justice League and its various members and whatnot. That's something I'm curious about. I'm getting a pretty.
We're going to get that.
What?
We're getting that in Justice League. He's going to be in Justice League coming up.
Right.
And I want to see that too for just that reason, because I think they're getting to the core of who Ali Queen was, who the character's always been. So I don't think this is a different Green Arrow. I think what we're doing is, I think we've scraped away a lot of what's happened to this guy. I'm talking about a lot of the things that I think got too heavy for him, and getting back to the core roots of who he's always been, the character that, and I'm finding that really refreshing with this character. Again, like other topics we've had, I'm guessing a lot of what's going on with this guy is a blank slate.
Yeah.
I love her at the end pulling the gun on him. And you keep wondering to yourself, okay, he got through that one. How's he going to get out of this one?
Look at his back, dude. He's out of arrows now.
Yeah.
And that was something I really dig throughout this, that you see the number of arrows decreasing. And it's a little art attention to detail that, yes, as he's using them, they have to go away. He's out of ammo right now, and he doesn't have his bow in his hand, so it's now physical Ali. What can he do? What's his training?
Green Arrow is a very iconic character for me from DC. This is a really important character for me to connect with. And I've always been a fan who's enjoyed Green Arrow. The first time I really read him consistently was Longbow Hunters. And then I just followed him ever since. I'm so glad that I feel like I've connected with Green Arrow again. He is my Green Arrow again. I'm not saying he's got all that history and all that stuff in there. Very similar to what I was finding refreshing in the Batgirl discussion. There's that familiarity, that connectability with what I like about Green Arrow at the core. So I think it's funny how I think we arrived at similar likes for this in a different way. I think you're liking that he's more of the superhero that you wanted him to be, and I'm like, no, this is the guy that he always was for me, and I'm glad to see him back. And I think we're both right in that, because we've had different experiences with the character as far as longevity with him. This is the guy I grew up with, and I love him back. He's cool. He's cool. And I can see him, getting together with a Black Canary and having the same troubles. Not that they have to go that route, but I see him having relationship issues because he's Ollie.
Well, and he's going to have relationship issues because he's Green Arrow, and there's just so much they can do with this guy. I'm really looking forward to the future of Green Arrow. I
think I'm the most excited. I know I'm the most excited for issue 6 out of every issue of Green Arrow so far. And I'm glad that I feel like next time Green Arrow comes out, I'm going to jump towards it.
Yeah,
and this issue really made me feel that way, where I haven't felt there previously. And I think it's just been a gradual build to this, and I'm glad that I'm finally at this point.
And our next review will be Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E, issue number 5.
S.H.A.D.E?
What did I say?
S.H.I.E.L.D. He really is the Nick Fury of the DC universe. I'm sorry. That one I couldn't let go. Frankenstein, agent of S.H.A.D.E. Where's Cap when you need him? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I had that one coming. Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. Story by Jeff Lemire and Dan DiDio. Written by Jeff Lemire. Art by Alberto Ponticelli. Colors by Jose Villarriuba. Villarriuba. Letters by Travis Lanham. Cover by J.G. Jones. Color cover by Hi-Fi. Assistant editor Katie Stewart. Editor Joey Cavalieri. And OMAC created by Jack Kirby.
Just apologize now.
Sorry, because I butchered the art team, and I absolutely love their work in this issue. So, I really tried on that one because I didn't want to. This was a really cool issue. This is a really fun issue, and again, it's funny because I always say fun. People are no, it's beyond just. This is a really cool character. I really dig Frankenstein. I'm really loving how he was portrayed back in Seven Soldiers of Victory on into now. Here, this is a cool version of Frankenstein. He's not the Frankenstein. No, this is an intelligent creature who is a little bit freaky. He's a little bit of a monster. He's a little bit of a hero. He's a little bit of a whatnot, all mixed together and making a really neat character that is a different, portrayal of a hero, a different portrayal of a person. It's kind of is he the sum of his parts or is he something more? Is there something beyond what we see in Frankenstein? He has this code of honor, this code of ethics that he lives by. And I was really excited when they announced this, and this is a title that keeps producing over and over and over again. And this fight with OMAC, again, was just a wonderful battle. I loved it in the OMAC series. Seeing the other side of it, seeing more of the S.H.A.D.E. side of this, really kind of added to the whole picture.
I like how this issue was handled. I loved the mirror image of what we saw in OMAC, but I love that it was, we're appropriate. We get to see it from Frankenstein's perspective, but then we get to see the build up to it and then the after effects from Frankenstein's perspective too. I don't want to see every crossover like this, but I'm a fan of when they do this from time to time. It's kind of a cool way to handle this to give both creators a chance. Plus, one of the cool things about the way that's presented is you don't really have to have read OMAC in order to enjoy this, and vice versa with how OMAC was handled. I thought both creators did a really cool job of writing stories that you don't have to read the crossover unless you want to. But go ahead.
But they gave you an editor note just to let you know about it. So if you didn't pick it up, hey, right in the very beginning of it, too. Right there, if you didn't pick this up, hey, you know what? The other part of this battle happened in OMAC. Pick that up as well. And I was glad to see that. I like that. We both love the editor notes. We both love the connectabilities and the backlog to, hey, this happened in issue 1. This happened in issue 5. This happened over in this comic. I love the cross references. I love it gives a universal feel to everything.
This is going to be a funny comment, but I want to talk about my experience with Frankenstein because it's been different than some other books. This is a book that, because of the way we do our show, and the fact that, during the course of the week we've been taking a look at the New 52 and picking certain books to chat about and things like that, Frankenstein's been a title I've been stockpiling. Now, let me clarify that, because that's not a negative with Frankenstein. Jeff Lemire is one of those writers that at this point, I know if Jeff Lemire's on a book, I'm going to enjoy it. It's not, at any point in time, droppable. Sweet Tooth did that for me. And everything since Sweet Tooth that I've read by Jeff Lemire, I love. So this is it's one of those writers. He's got it. It's a home run. So usually when I say that, it's because I haven't been connecting with the book. I read the first issue of it, really enjoyed it. We got busy with things on the show, and this is just a book just for whatever reason due to time and being busy. It's stockpiled, but I would have kept stock. Like, let's say I got so insanely busy I never got to it. I would stockpile this book for years to keep supporting it because I know when I read it, it's Jeff Lemire. It's going to be terrific. So it's an interesting statement to say that. When we got to the point where we were picking this, Frankenstein was one of those I also wanted to talk about last month because I'm like, I just want an excuse to get to reading this. Because a lot of times when we select things to read for the show because we're trying to explore the New 52, I will then go back and end up reading previous issues anyway. So I'm like, oh, this will give me an excuse to, go and read Frankenstein because I want to read Jeff Lemire and do all that. When I saw that it was going to be a crossover, deliberately waited on this for that reason. Ended up reading issue 1 again. Went back issues 1 through 5. Oh my gosh, is this book amazing? Like, there wasn't a bad issue in the batch. I love the relationship with the wife, the creature commandos. I love that they are fleshed out with such a great, diverse set of personalities. And I love that the creature commandos have an origin, including one of them who created them and did it to herself because she could not handle them going through it unless she was willing to do it herself. She needed that confidence psychologically to go through that, to turn herself into a fish lady. I think that relationship's great. I love that Frankenstein starts to connect with and respect her along the way, even though she's not a combatant like he is. Like, I think in many ways he connected with the honesty of her pain and what she went through, and how that kind of monster story fits what he did and his own kind of curiosities about himself. She becomes a confidant. And through that, we see some really pivotal stuff this issue. You talked about how, Frankenstein is either some of his parts or whatever. I love that they're going to explore where those parts came from and how much that drives the man who he is. Is he going to like what he finds? I love that. It was something really cool about this whole thing. The journey has been amazing. I love Lady Frankenstein, how that's all, or Bride of Frankenstein, how that's all playing out in this whole thing. We're not still married, and that, that whole relationship. It's a quirky, weird book that just reads like there wasn't a bad issue out of the batch. They were all home runs. If you're not reading Sweet Tooth and you like this book, read Sweet Tooth.
Yeah.
This is what this writer does. I mean, he just writes great material. And it's very character driven. I love Ray Palmer in this. I love Father Time in this. It's just every character and every beat. It's not just Frank. Frank's great for everything you said. It's the whole cast and the handling of this. This is one of those titles that's just rising up my stack as being another one of my favorites. And it's really, Jeff Lemire is one of those writers that he's in that category as well. I talked about it with Scott Snyder, mentioned Gail Simone. Jeff Lemire is in that category where this is a guy that I'm just grabbing everything he does because it's just going to be good. And it is. This guy gets it.
Yeah. One of the things I digged about Frank and Nina's, friendship, relationship, whatever's going on between them, was not only did Frank connect to her honesty about her fears and everything she went through, Frank recognized that she was willing to, step up. There's a courage to her. When she's thrown into that combat situation, first couple times he helps her. After that, she's learning on her feet. She's learning, hey, I got to step up. I got to help out Frank. I got to throw down. So he recognizes that courage in her. He recognizes that honor in her character. And I loved seeing that and that little connection between them and wondering where it's, I always wonder where outside of the book, outside of the pages, where it's going to go. I want to see cool action sequences. I want to see cool hero moments. But I also want to see that interpersonal relationship. And between Frank and Nina is, something I'm kind of wondering, are they going to have a date night? What would a date night with Frankenstein be like? I'm wondering where this is going to go.
I love in the beginning of the book, we see him ripping apart these little gnomes.
Yeah.
And the one of them is saying, please do not kill me, strange large man. And he did. And he knew, though, I know not what you say, but it is undoubtedly a pathetic plea for a reprieve that will not be granted. He knew what was going on there, as we see his eyeballs flying all over the place. But he let the one run away. And I love the reason. Tell them Frankenstein lies in wait. And should they think of returning, I will see your entire miserable race fall on the sword of Archangel Michael. It's just such great dialogue. I mean, there were so many moments that's like, yes, Frankenstein.
And He goes from this gruesome, violent destruction of the little gnome-type creatures to then these peaceful moments with the brothers. And I love that, just how there is that conflict, there is that warrior, there is that man searching for the moments of peace and serenity, but he is also capable of doing some massive amounts of damage. He's capable of opening up not only a can, but a case or even a keg of whoop-ass. I love seeing that type of stuff go on with this character. This is, it's fun moments, it's action moments, it's cool moments. Frankenstein is a neat book.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Amen. We see these sequences, again, back at S.H.A.D.E HQ, or Checkmate, I guess, the Checkmate covert headquarters hidden inside Mount Rushmore. And he's talking with them, and he all of a sudden gets in this situation where he's going after OMAC. We saw that in the OMAC issue, and it was very well handled here, just to give you kind of a mirror image. But what I loved is now we get to see the perspective of what's it like for Frank when he's flying there. Because we got to see the perspective from OMAC's end, where what he was dealing with at that time. Now we're seeing him complaining about the lack of intel. And that's something that I really like about him, because we see these two beasts, OMAC and him, fighting each other. But on the surface, there's these two big, powerful, hulking monsters that are just going toe-to-toe. But they're so drastically different in their presentation and what they're going for. I love that he's an agent. That he really is, and that if he's going into an operation, give me the intel that I need. Give me the information, because I want to be successful. In order to be successful, I have to know what I'm dealing with to develop a strategy. Frankenstein developing a strategy. How cool is that? they're just, the whole concept is quirky, nuts, and fun, led by a little girl who's Father Time. It's just, if you tell somebody about this book who doesn't read comics, they're going to look at you like you're a total nut. But this is the geeky kind of fun stuff. Like anybody who's into supernatural material, you hand this book to them in an instant. A few pages in, they're going to be following this because it's nuts.
And you know what? It's funny with Father Time being the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
That when I first, that first initial reading of that did kind of like have me going, I don't know. But by the end of that first issue, I not only was cool with it, I actually enjoyed it. Then each new issue that goes on beyond it, I like the fact that Father Time is sitting there in this little girl body, and I like the fact that he's actually even wears a mask, because he's got to protect his secret identity. I think that is kind of a little funny kind of commentary on it, and this is something that I'm like, okay, I dig that. I dig the little quirkiness behind it, whereas like within that first initial reading, or if you had told me that was going on, I'd be like, what? I don't know about that. But it's not only accepted, it's appreciated and enjoyed now.
Well, here's the great thing, too. I love the layer of when Father Time sends Frank into there, don't worry, Frankie, I'm sure this will be a piece of cake. Father Time so knew this was not going to be a piece of cake. The whole point of this was to send Frank in to keep OMAC busy so Father Time can actually hatch Father Time's plan.
Yeah.
And I love that layer of that, because that fits what I enjoyed about Father Time pre the New 52 in other appearances, has been that this guy isn't the most caring and loyal when it comes to the minions underneath. It really is the goal, the greater goal is more important than the risk to the agent, if that makes sense. Putting Frank at risk here in the battle with OMAC, and whether or not Frank wins that battle is not important to Father Time at all. It's the information that I can get about Brother I is way more important and useful to the overall goals of S.H.A.D.E than what might happen with Frank versus OMAC.
Yeah, Frank's tough enough. He can handle himself.
But that's the thinking. What you're saying there, actually, you're saying that jokingly, but I 110% agree with you. That's Father Time's because
that's
Frank,
his mindset.
Yeah, Frank will at the very least survive this, whatever happens there, and be strong enough to buy enough time that we can get what we need out of all this. Because that's why Frank was sent. Whether or not Frank would win is irrelevant.
Yeah.
He knew Frank would be relentless, or she, whatever you call Father Time, would be relentless enough to buy enough time for that goal. The victory there, whether there is one or not, is irrelevant. Loved how that played out.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the sequences that I didn't notice before, but I'm noticing it now, when we see Father Time inside the ant farm, and he's sitting there talking with Belroy about the plan and what's going on and how there's an attack on their system. He's sitting on a chair, but he's sitting on top of some phone books because he'd be too low. I never noticed that because he's a little kid, he's a little girl, he has to sit on top of phone books.
What a great sequence.
I never noticed that before. I was focused on all the other cool stuff, and I'm like, dang, that is just neat.
But what the important part is, it's not made, it's subtle.
Yeah.
It's wacky, good fun that's subtle, and that balance is really important to the book because Father Time is taken seriously because Father Time demands seriousness. Even in a situation like that where normally people would be laughing at Father Time, I'm not laughing at Father Time knowing what Father Time is capable of. You know what? And I love that duality of that situation and the way, the tone of all that. That's one of the reasons why this book to me is just, so different and unique than anything else I'm reading. It's really an important part of my reading list now. And this is where Jeff Lemire, I knew this was going to be the case with this book. I just had a ton of confidence in it all the way through. That it was one of those books. That's why it was important when I was mentioning I stockpiled it. I really wanted to add. It was one of those where I was stockpiling it just because I was confident, and I really enjoyed the experience. I got to be honest with you. It was great to read issue 2, 3, and 4, and 5 back to back, just because I had them all. Like it would have been for me. It would have been torture to have waited in between issues for this series. Now, like waiting for issue 6 is going to be torture, because I'm so used to reading this book in meaty sittings. When I read issue 1 and then went back to 2, 3, 4, and 5, I had intended to read 2 issues. I stayed up till 2 in the morning reading this book. Because what I've been doing lately is, I'm in my middle of my report card time, which is why the show was delayed a little bit. At nighttime, after I'm done with everything, at least, where I'm leaving off for the night, before I go to sleep, I'm reading a few comics. And, it's usually 2 or 3. Because, it's late. I've been really busy and, but I want to stay up with my comic reading and I genuinely enjoy that as kind of a reward before I go to sleep. I was reading Green Arrow to get caught up for it. And I read Batman and Batgirl to get caught up for it. I read the most recent issues of all those because I've been up current with all those books. And then I'm like, okay, now that I've read those books, I want to start on Frankenstein because I didn't want to start on Frank and then stop and go back and read those books. I wanted to read those and then do Frank all together. So I'm like, I'll read like an issue of Frank or 2 and then go to sleep. I couldn't put the doggone thing down. Like I, at the end of 5, at the end of this issue, I was like, wait, there's got to be more. I want to read more. I'm like Frank Happy. I would have kept going. This is that kind of book. It's fun. It's wacky. It's different. And this is one of the reasons where the New 52 has been a success to me. Is I throw the diversity word out there, and I know that's been, that was the way this whole thing was labeled. But I think that word has a lot of different meanings when it comes to the New 52. This is an example of a diversity in type of book, type of storytelling, type of characters presented, and this line. And this is one of those books that I think really, I hope, winds up being very successful because you need something like this. What book this reminds me of? I don't think you've read any issues of this. I remember when I used to read Hitman by Garth Ennis. One of the things I liked about Hitman at the time is there was nothing else like it. It was in the DCU. It took place in the DCU. It was great characters. It wasn't just Hitman. It was the cast, he had this great supporting cast. It was quirky. It was different. You knew the interactions when he did have interactions with heroes in the universe or other characters from the DCU, that it was not going to be like any other interaction. This is a very different style of book, but I put it in that category of this being one of those books that will be endearing to me the way Hitman was, because it's just very unique in its nature and tone, fun, quirky characters that you're just not going to see anywhere else. This is a special book, and it's just something, I don't know, it was a weird connection. I don't know, have you read any of Hitman?
No.
Yeah.
I think there was a Hitman special
recently
that I read. So that's about all I think I've ever read.
Yeah, and the series itself you'd have to appreciate because it had this kind of vibe in the sense where each issue it wasn't just about following the main character. It was about following all the people associated with that character. This is a supporting cast that's very, very well developed as you see these two fighting here. OMAC was very well handled in this book. It's funny, the art styles are very different between the two books, but this art, I think, is so perfect for Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And I just really love how the artistic creative team has really done just a great job of saying, okay, what style are we going to use to bring Frankenstein's world to life? But I love that OMAC, even though he's being drawn different, slightly differently because of the fact it's a different art approach in this book, he it clearly feels like OMAC captures all the right beats. We got the flapping of his his mohawk and all the things that I really like about his look in there. And I don't know, it was just I loved seeing the duality in the presentation and how it felt right.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like I was looking through Frankenstein's eyes and seeing OMAC in this book. And in OMAC's book, it felt like I was seeing OMAC through Frankenstein's eyes because of the art differences, which was interesting how that worked out for me. I don't know if you had that experience, but that's kind of how it worked out for me with this, which was neat.
Well, it was definitely the art. As I said, right when we started, the artwork on this issue was something that I just absolutely loved. And it's non-traditional panels. It's images laid on top of each other to show movement. And Frank's knocking OMAC down, and you got bam, bam, kind of tumbling effect going on. You're showing just a 2-page spread. The battle sequences, multiple panels overlaying each other. This was visually a very pleasing book for me, and it's not even like. Again, it's weird because it's not what I would call my quote-unquote traditional favorite art style, but for me, this is a perfect art style for this book.
Oh, yeah.
For this story I'm getting. So because it's such a perfect meshing of what I should be seeing, it is it becomes something I truly and deeply enjoy. If this was a Green Arrow was drawn in this art style, I probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. I'd say, okay, yeah, it's a neat art, but it wouldn't have that same type of connection because for me and the current Green Arrow we got going on, I don't have this same type of feel because it's Frank, because it's OMAC, because everything's going on with the creatures and the freakiness that is, S.H.A.D.E. This fits so well, and it's that blending, meshing of the story and the physical artwork that make me really, really enjoy this book.
I love that this is Jeff Lemire working with Ray Palmer again.
Yeah.
Which was something that dawned on me one of my later read-throughs of this, because I went back through and reread it twice after I read the whole thing, just because I just loved it so much. And when I went back through, I'm like, wait a minute. He actually worked with Ray Palmer before when he did those Atoms, and I actually that was one that I was hoping would have gone to series because I really liked what he did with Atom in those co-features. And I like this use of Ray Palmer here. I'm glad that with getting Ryan Choi as the Atom, we're getting something with Ray Palmer in a role that really fits, I think, the strengths of the character of Ray Palmer. And seeing what was done here, I love that Brother Eye got something out of this. And S.H.A.D.E got something out of this, but I don't think either of them got everything that they wanted to get out of this whole situation.
You got to take what you can get, and each one of them is claiming victory out of it, and that's their personality. And it's funny because the creepiness that Father Time has in that sequence, that close-up of his face, of her face, when she's like, I have a little surprise in store for the brother, and she's got that. It's no longer the little girl look. There is something freaky, creepy, and kind of cool about that one little panel. And then we go into Ray Palmer and all the tech stuff that he's doing, being the cool Ray that he is. I really love just how this kind of played out because that one panel just really sticks out to me because you have the pastel type of purples and blues and some green panels going on with Ray stuff, but that brother, the Father Time sequence, got the darker shade on either side of this scary little girl face that's not so much a little girl face anymore. I really liked how that kind of was thrown in there.
I love that Father Time was still trying to pass this off as a security issue.
Yeah.
And that now that Frank was no longer needed to keep OMAC busy, I can wrap this up, buddy. And still didn't tell him the whole thing. I love that Frank, though, this again showing the intelligence and savvy of Frank through hundreds of years of being alive and doing this. I love that there is an intelligence. I love that there's a street smarts. I love that there's a nobility to him. Even when he leans down to kiss Nina's hand, in that one moment, that good day, milady, you can find me in my domicile when my new arm is ready for grafting. I loved the way that all played out. Frankenstein versus the original Creature Commandos, sign me up. Just a terrific title. This is one, if you're missing it, I can't encourage you enough. If you're looking for something just a little wacky, a little different, that's great action. Like when I say wacky, it's kind of like when you mentioned before with fun. I don't mean that to diminish the like well-written, great, deep storytelling tones, because you're dealing with some deep emotional issues with what's going on with Nina and dealing with her past and her own issues. And I think each of the Creature Commandos we're going to find have their own issues. We even got a mystery of who that wrapped up mummy looking one is. It's I love that there's still questions, because I don't know a whole bunch about the Creature Commandos. I don't know how true to the original concept these are, but I like this version of them and what they're doing. And I love how each of them, one of them's constantly looking for approval, while the other one, it's you kind of question how much loyalty is there. It's each one has their own different thing going on that keeps them unique, and to me that adds an endless opportunity of different types of stories you can tell, and you can always replace some of them down the road or add a new Creature Commando or something like that to expand this book as well. I don't know, just an interesting sequence of events and just a great title. Yeah. I'm glad we finally got to talk about this one.
Amen. This has been just a fun. I'm digging Frank. This is a good title. This is a solid title for me, and this is. I don't know if I can. It's weird. You can say this is my top 10. This is my top 5. I can't say that with titles. I have a hard time ranking stuff, but I know in my head what's a solid title for me and what's on the cusp, or what could possibly, if I lost my job tomorrow, would I, sell blood to keep the book? I would sell blood to keep this book. This would not get cut until I was, on death's door with no pennies, with no money to my name. I would still keep getting this book because I'm enjoying it so much. And it's kind of that, palate cleanser, but 2, it's also an enjoyable read. It's something I'm liking. It's a title that I'm like, this is a good book. Give it a shot.
Titles hit a point where either they're undroppable or not. Now, I mean, if this took a major turn, then it becomes droppable. Jeff Lemire, I don't see that happening. As long as he's on this title, it's going to be a terrific title, because Sweet Tooth's just been that way. It's just nonstop coolness, and a very different type of title, but yet the same quality writing that you come to expect from Jeff Lemire. And I don't know, it's one of the. Are you reading Sweet Tooth?
I've picked up the books. I haven't actually had a moment to sit down and read them.
If you feel, and this isn't just for you, this is for anybody listening to this, if you're enjoying Frankenstein and you're not reading Sweet Tooth, read Sweet Tooth. It's just such a great book. I'm not saying in place of Frankenstein. I'm saying that this is a writer who the quality is just there, and it's very different and unique. Great, interesting, well-developed cast of characters that you'll love. And I can't recommend Sweet Tooth highly enough. It's a book that was my introduction to Jeff Lemire. I ended up grabbing it on a whim because you see a boy with a reindeer, or deer antlers or whatever, with his deer antlers. That was his whole MO. And I'm like, okay, this looks goofy. I want to read it. And again, like when I made my disclaimer about the wacky thing, when I say goofy, there's so much deep issues that are being dealt with these characters that you can connect with, that the wacky fun part of it just keeps it lighthearted and interesting and endearing. There's endearing is a really good word for it. That's why those pieces are in place, so you love these characters for when like crazy horrible things happen to them. I don't know. It's just I think that's really important that you have a love for the main character in a title and the cast in the title, and it's a title I cannot recommend highly enough. Sweet Tooth. So if you like in Frankenstein, do yourself a favor and grab that as well. Just really cool stuff. And this, I agree with you what you're saying with this title. This is one that I don't know what the top 10 list of. I did it the one time just to say I could do it. And I meant what I said, but it would be different now.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm convinced now it's going to be different from week to week, issue to issue that I'm reading. I could shave down if I needed to, but I think in any case, any scenario where I shave down, like let's say budget-wise I had to shave down to 10 books, it would be very hard for me to do, and there would be definitely regret with every decision, because I think any title in that 10 could be replaced by 3 other titles that could fit each of those slots, if I'm making sense. So I think I would look for, book type 1, book type 2, book type 3, and there might be 5 or 6 different books that fit that theme or that category or that quality of a title. I would look for like a mixed lineup, though, of certain types of books. And I think a Frankenstein would fit that. A Sweet Tooth would fit that. An Animal Man would fit that. And I'm deliberately choosing. I would need a Jeff Lemire book in there because he's that type of writer. And if I had to make budget decisions, it would be I would start going with these creators deliver for me, these artists deliver for me, and I would fit those in. I would have a very, very tough time making a top 10 list right now.
Oh, big time.
That I would stick to.
Yeah.
Holy caffeine!
In March, it's a big anniversary for us. We're going to be celebrating 6 years of the podcast, also our 300th episode. To celebrate this, we've partnered with DiscountPartySupplies.com. Discount Party Supplies offers a special celebration package involving Green Lantern that we thought would be really cool for this. And also, of course, show sponsor InStockTrades.com. To enter, we want you to show your creativity and sense of humor. Choose from any of the themes, 300 episodes, 6 years, anniversary. You can draw, record, write what your favorite hero or villain would do to celebrate or even ruin our anniversary, obviously, if it's the villain end of it. A parody of any of the show's episodes, themes, or topics. This can include, but is not limited to, making your own spoiler warnings, show introductions, etc. Create fun bullets for in between the show segments. Create an article or review if you're in the writing end of things of a favorite book or topic that you want to shout out that we either covered so far where you want to put your thoughts in, or that you wish we had or will cover down the road. Or any other creative way you want to celebrate or have fun with our upcoming anniversary. We want to leave this purposely open-ended so anyone can enter, so if you've got a great creative idea, feel free to send it into the show. You can enter as many times as you want before the end of February, and we're going to randomly pick from the available entries of these prizes. The first prize will be a trade paperback of your choice from InStockTrades.com. That's going to be on Jim and myself. Also, from DiscountPartySupplies.com, you're going to be getting a Green Lantern prize package. This is going to include a green table cover, Green Lantern balloon, a set of 4 Green Lantern glow-in-the-dark rings, Green Lantern stickers, Green Lantern black and green streamers, a package of black and a package of green balloons, 8 Green Lantern invitations, 8 Green Lantern plates, 8 Green Lantern napkins, 8 Green Lantern cups, 8 Green Lantern blowouts, also 24 candles and plastic cutlery. So that's from DiscountPartySupplies.com. So this is really cool. You got a big little party package you can celebrate with us in March. Second and third prize, we're going to be randomly picking those. We have a listener and show donated comic and trade prize bag. These are things that listeners have sent to us over the years to use as donations, and Jim and I have also added to from our own collections. So second and third prize winners, I'm going to be sending you lists of things that you can choose from, and I will be mailing those to you. Entries, once again, are due by the last day of February in any time zone, and they should be emailed to ragingbullets@gmail.com with the heading 300th Contest. Recorded entries may be sent to our show via the voicemail line, 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype. So if you're doing some kind of audio thing, you're welcome to do that. Or you can email them, too, if you record them and want to send them to me as MP3 files. Whatever's the easiest for you. So once again, we're keeping it deliberately open-ended to hopefully make it easy for everyone to enter. Write, draw, record, whatever's the easiest thing for you. Do that and participate and be a part of the contest. This is a big deal for us, and we want you to be a part of it. All of these rules are going to be available on our show website, ragingbullets.com. So if there's something on here that you want to look over again, feel free to do that. Any questions on the contest, feel free to email me at ragingbullets@gmail.com. I'll be happy to get back to you. But like I said, we're trying to be very flexible and open-ended because the idea is to include everybody versus making it hard for people to enter this contest. And I want to thank, once again, discountpartysupplies.com and instocktrades.com for supporting the show. Jim, in March, we are heading towards episode 300. And the topic we're going to be covering is probably going to cover a few episodes.
Oh, boy.
Coming up this summer is the new Batman movie. And in the new Batman movie, they're going to be pulling themes from a very famous Batman story called Nightfall. For episode 300, Jim, we are covering Nightfall. And when I say we're covering Nightfall, we're not covering one trade. We're not covering two trades. Jim, we are going to do Nightfall, both parts, and Night's End, because it's time to discuss Nightfall on the show. We actually billed this 8 years ago that we wanted to do this. I don't know how many years ago. It was like, I think, the first year that we did the podcast, and we just never got to it. And I can't think of a better time with that coming this summer than to go after that classic story. And instead of trying to put 85 things with it like we did when we originally billed it way back when, I can't think of a better topic for episode 300 than something meaty, something where we're going to hate each other by the time we're done preparing for it, than that story, because there's a lot of history with that for me. Have you ever read the whole thing of Nightfall?
Yeah, actually I have. I didn't read the follow-up stuff, but Nightfall was the thing that my one buddy built up in BG. Hoach let me borrow it and read it. Say, "Oh, you got to read. This is a cool Batman story." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I just borrowed the comics and read it. I don't think I own it.
Did you read only the breaking of the Bat, or did you read when he came back?
I read only the breaking of the Bat and, taught through just, discussion and whatnot, found out how he came back. But I never really read the whole details behind him returning and everything that he did. It's very, very limited knowledge on. I know what happens. I just haven't physically experienced it yet. This
month they reissued the first trade of Nightfall. But on instocktrades.com, they've got the previous versions of the trade. There's Volume 1, Volume 2, and then Volume 3, which is Night's End. It skips Night's Quest. Night's Quest was the storyline. It was when Azrael was Batman.
Yeah.
It covers that whole story. That's skipped in what we're going to be doing. We're going to actually jump from when Azrael becomes Batman to what happens when Bruce comes back. And it's a big story. It's a meaty story. It's a lot of material to cover, which is why it's probably going to take us multiple episodes to do. It'll probably be 300, 302, 303 is what I'm thinking. We'll probably do a trade an episode. But it's something to do for an anniversary. I think it's a big story. It's an important story. And the timing couldn't be better with the fact that so many elements of this are being incorporated into the movie that's coming out this summer. We'll have a chance to do that in March, and it'll be kind of a nice thing for fans maybe who haven't read it before to experience it, for fans that have to revisit it in preparation for the show. And that's why I'm announcing this now, so that way you know what's coming in March for anybody listening to this. It is all available on instocktrades.com. It's also available if you want to pre-order it from dcbservice.com, the first volume of the trade. And if you want to get the other two volumes, you can get that from instocktrades.com that way. So however you want to digest this. And if you have the old issues, crank them out because it's time to go for it. So I don't know. I wanted to announce it to you ahead of time so you had plenty of time to go for it too. It's something nutty that would require a lot of preparation on our part anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's a story that, especially with you not having read the ending, I want to revisit it because I have not read it in years since it first came out. So I'm looking forward to rereading that story and revisiting. When it did come out, I read it multiple times, but it'd be kind of cool to visit it. Our next episode, Jim, we're going to be finishing off our exploration of the New 52 with Blackhawks, number 5, I, Vampire, number 5, and Firestorm, number 5. Plus, we'll pick something else to discuss. Something to revisit. So we'll have to think about that, and you and I can discuss what we might want to... Oh, can we do Aquaman?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm really digging that book, and just seems like one I'd like to explore again. So we'll do Aquaman as well. So that'll be our 4 books for next week. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. This is the week to check out DCBService.com for the amazing discounts that they're offering there. Remember to link your Comixology account to your DCBService.com account, so you're getting that extra 5% off of your DCB Service order. So if you're shopping digitally, make sure to take advantage of that over at DCBService.com. Over at InStockTrades.com, we are going to be doing Nightfall for episode 300. It's actually probably going to be episode 300, 301, 302. I'm assuming each trade's probably going to take an episode for us. This story is going to be influencing the upcoming Batman film. I don't know to what level, but we already know with Bane being in there and, you know, the overtones that Batman's going to be broken during the film, that they're going to be taking elements from Nightfall. So we thought it'd be fun to attack the big story that is Nightfall. We're going to be covering Batman Nightfall Part 1, the broken back trade paperback, which is $11.99, regular $19.99. You can get that 40% off from InStockTrades.com. Batman Nightfall Part 2, Who Rules the Night? $17.99 regularly, 40% off, only $10.79 from InStockTrades.com. And Part 3, which collects Night's End. This is the final chapter of the series. $19.99 regularly, 40% off, only $11.99. It's a great chance for us to take a look at that story. I know Jim, as we just talked about, had never read Part 3. He's read Part 1 and Part 2. And that led into Knight's Quest. And then after Knight's Quest was over, it led to Knight's End, which is the final chapter of the series. So this is going to be a fun opportunity for us to explore this really big story. It was something we've talked about for years doing on the show, and we just never got around to. And it's a big, epic story. We figure for our 300th show, this is a chance to hit it. And the timing's really good with the film coming up. So if you haven't picked up those, go to InStockTrades.com and grab them. 40% off each for each of the trades. And remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. So it's a great opportunity to kind of bundle up and grab some things and save some money from InStockTrades.com. So we want to thank them for sponsoring our show. We will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan